Good evening and welcome to the December business meeting / work session of the Richmond Community Schools Board of School Trustees. This is our only meeting in December, but we are going to do things like we normally do, so if you'll join me for the pledge, I appreciate it.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. And if we could have the reading of our mission statement, please.
Richmond Community Schools guide students on pathways of learning to a future of limitless possibilities.
And our vision statement.
Richmond Community Schools, a community nurturing mind, body, and spirit to prepare students for life of choice, purpose, and service.
Thank you so very much. And as usual, we also have opportunity for public comment. Do we have anyone signed up tonight?
Mr. Troyer.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. Well, Brandon promised me I could figure this out, so we'll see if I can use this computer. But really, I just wanted to bring you news as what was happening at Hibbert this month. It's great to see you all. I hope you have a happy holiday. Last time I was here, we talked a little bit about the Deus Mortes celebration, and so that's over. Thank you, those of you who were able to come. It was actually, I think Dr. Carroll was there visiting that day, so it was a convenient time to stop by. So I'll bring you a little note as to what's going on where. Really, what's been most exciting has been watching Life Skills do some of its commercial work. They've put on a chili lunch, they've done a pumpkin sale, they've been out in the community, went to a movie, so on. So it's been really neat to see what's going on in Life Skills this month. For myself, Logos is getting ready for its presentations. Our second wave is coming up, so for those of you who had kids there, you'll know the stress they're currently under. So they're getting ready. They start tomorrow. So if any of you are around, please feel free to come by. We'll be presenting Thursday and Friday of this week and Monday and Tuesday of next week. So it's a great time to come by and see everything from Salem witch trials to fission reactors to James Joyce, something like that. So it'll be pretty neat. Obviously, students are getting ready to celebrate Christmas as well. So we've been looking at Christmas all over the world. And that's been really interesting to see some of the different traditions that countries have. Our little pumpkins are working on their new VEX IQ challenge. So I was doing robotics for a while, and now the 3rd and 4th graders are doing robotics. So if you get a chance, I know some of you, the Kiwanis Club came last year and watched the 3rd and 4th graders robots challenge. And that was really nice. They had their monthly meeting at Hibbert and then came and ate lunch there, and then the little guys were able to drive around and kind of show off their talents. So that's been pretty nice. Early college is up to all kinds of stuff in class. I know Miss Kelly's working on some poetry writing at the national level. That's really exciting, and there's a little article in here that she wrote that'll help you better understand that than I can possibly explain it. So it'll be pretty neat to see. And then Miss Washington and I both have been working with our kids on owl pellets. So there's a lot of little skeletons running around now that used to be rats and moles and voles and so on. So if that doesn't gross you out, you can come see that too. That's pretty neat. The 3rd and 4th graders stopped by to see those up on the walls. So that's been really interesting to watch. And of course, our Cats choir is getting ready. Actually, this evening, they've been practicing like crazy, and I think tomorrow's their performance. So they'll be putting on, the 3rd and 4th graders are putting on their Christmas program. So it's been an exciting time, obviously, with the semester ending and Christmas coming and the holidays and all that. So hopefully you can get a chance to stop by and see some of the stuff that's going on. And I'll hand these out and get out of your way.
I do have one question.
I'll help you if I can.
You said the kids were under stress for their presentations. Or would the parents be under more stress?
Yeah,
Right.
Most of you who have had anything to do with it will understand that really what happens is space. As the project time comes, people tend to lose dining room tables or the rec room or the basement.
Thank you.
I've always heard that the best part about a Logo student graduating was getting your house back every 9 weeks. It's been years now, but I had a parent meet me at the pool one time where my son was swimming to bring me some supplies. She had a minivan full of glue sticks and construction paper and so on. So it is a it is a family affair sometimes to get through, especially if you have more than one. So, fortunately, my kid's done with that, so it's easy. Thanks, guys. I hope you have fun. Have a great holiday.
Thank you.
you.
Okay, thank you so much. Anyone else? Okay, I think we're on to our consent items.
Okay, our consent items this evening for your consideration, we have 3.01, the approval of minutes, 3.02, human resources, 3.03, accounts payable, and then 3.04, our monthly financial report.
Okay, do you have a motion?
I'll make the motion that we approve the consent items as presented.
Okay, do I have a second, Aaron?
I'll second.
Thank you. You were about to first, so. Any comments or questions about the consent items?
I have a comment, but it really doesn't have to do with what's presented tonight, so after we vote it, if it's all right.
Sure, I guess so. Anyone else? All those in favor of approving the consent items as presented signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Your question, Jeff?
Well, at our last board meeting, I had a notation, you know, how in board docs you can make notes about questions, and I had forgot to mention, I noticed that one of the expenditures was the $100 and some thousand that come out of the rainy day for the buses that we just recently received, all planned. My curiosity was that we allocated $600,000 out of rainy day for that. Is our only did that complete our bus expense, or do we have more expense coming out of the?
We do not have yes and no. So what I will say is we don't have any more additional costs total coming for buses. However, because I don't know what our settlement for tax distribution is in the bus replacement fund, I may have to move some of the current expense from bus replacement over to the rainy day fund to make that net zero at the end of the year for bus replacement. Right now I'm showing a negative 33 in bus replacement at the end of the year just because I don't know what that tax collection is. It may be high enough that I can move some out of rainy day and make that a net zero. The way that we had intended was to have a zero balance in bus replacement at the end of the year. So whatever dollar that is that we gather in revenue, whether I need to move expense out of bus replacement and into rainy day or from rainy day into bus replacement to make that zero, that's what we will do. I only have so much appropriation approved in bus replacement that number has to hit. So if there is cash, it's because there wasn't enough appropriation to cover that full expense, but we are not going to use that full 600.
So does that mean, and does that appropriation then
Roll.
die or roll, or do
We have the choice on that. I did write 600,000 into next year's budget for
that.
rainy day because I was not sure how the operations fund is going to work and if they're going to give me the appropriation in the bus area. Still don't have that final budget order, so I don't know yet. But what I thought we might do was roll the appropriation and then we can strike it and reduce it if we need to. Once the first of the year comes, we get the budget order, we know how much the quote for the buses comes in at. That was just my own thought on it. However, because we do have that 600,000 in the current budget, we could strike it this year and not roll it as well.
Well, and thanks for the explanation, because I think I would like to personally see that once we have covered the intent of that transfer out of the rainy day, I would like to roll back into rainy day. I shouldn't say roll back, because we never took the money out, it was just appropriated. But I would like to close that appropriation and leave that money unencumbered in the rainy day, so.
You are welcome to make a motion on that.
So, well, you don't have your numbers now. I mean, you're saying you still need.
No, but we do have the 600 in next year's budget. So that should cover us for next year. If that is the will of the board to strike what's remaining, whatever that may be, At the end of the year, I can bring a resolution in January, like we do the transfer resolution, where it'll be effective December 31, but you pass it officially in January to just strike that. I can,
Well,
I
I'll leave,
can be
I
ready
mean,
to approve that.
I'll just leave it up to the executive committee to have that discussion and amongst us, so. But I just was keeping track of that and, because the rainy day fund is the only fund that we really, as a board, control. So that's the one that I pay a lot of attention to, and we allocate money out of that, so. Thank you.
Okay. Now, we are on to our action items.
Okay, our action items tonight, we have 5 in a row that are all with Mrs. Scalf, so rather than introduce her for each one of them, Karen, I'll just ask you to speak to them as we go through them.
Okay, so a lot to do tonight. The first is donations, and tonight we are very grateful for $3,714 in donations from our public. Ullery's Homemade Ice Cream donated some gift certificates for Student of the Month at Hibbard. Vintage Wheels Auto Club donated canned foods to Test for their annual student shopping drive that they have each holiday season, and that amount was $1,500. Armstrong Cleaners, Van Vliet Insurance Agency, and Dot Foods Inc. all donated to the RHS Boys Basketball Athletic Scholarship. So tonight I ask the board for approval of $3,714 in donations.
Very good. Do I have a motion to accept the donations?
I move that we approve the donations.
Motion from Dixie Robinson,
I'll second the motion.
second from Aaron Stevens. Any comments or questions?
I have a question. Is that a new scholarship?
I don't believe so. I just think we haven't received funds for it in quite a while.
And there's no Title IX issues with boys versus girls basketball?
I don't know. I would have to look at the scholarship offerings. I think that because donors are allowed to donate to whatever scholarship they wish, I would not expect we have issues, because I would guess that we have scholarships.
Foundation handles most of the, I mean, if this is
The
coming to
alumni?
us,
You mean, by foundation, you mean the
Wayne
alumni?
County Foundation.
Oh, the Wayne County Foundation,
I mean, most of the scholarships,
No, our scholarships are held at the high school.
through the Alumni Association.
No.
Well, they have their
They
separate
have
thing.
separate,
Yeah.
right. They have quite a few there. We also have some in our
just
extracurricular.
ask them the question.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? All those in favor of accepting the donations as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 4.02.
Okay. It is December, and due to the early board meeting this month, I would like permission to do an additional accounts payable docket. Later this month, the docket would be approved by the board at the first January 2019 meeting, and it does allow us to pay our vendors in a timely manner and better reflects our 2018 expenses. Just a note for the board, most of this docket is utility expenses or just routine contractual obligations that the school corporation has, as well as final purchases that are currently under purchase order. So it's my recommendation that the board grant permission to process an additional docket in December 2018 as it's been presented.
I move that we approve the actionable item for the docket of rule.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second from Debbie Moore. Any comments or questions about that? All those in favor of approving the additional docket signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And 4.03.
All right, and this is consent for 2018 budget appropriation transfers for our taxing funds. Just a note that each year as we go through the process of closing the books on our taxing funds, there are line items that have been expended that are less than appropriated, and those that have been expended more than appropriated in the approved budgets. We are required to have board action on transfers of appropriation from one major functional category to another, as expressed on the adopted budget forms. These transfers will take place as we complete our end-of-year processing. Specific dollar amounts will be presented at the January 2019 board meeting for final approval. Attached is the form of the resolution that will come before the board at that time. The resolution will accomplish the budget appropriation transfer process and balance all line item expenditures in the 2018 budget. The process shifts available appropriations from where there was not a need to where there was a need within the general fund, debt service fund, capital projects fund, and transportation operating fund. No transfers of expenditures will be made that are in excess of the total available appropriation for each fund. It is my recommendation that the Board of School Trustees authorize the treasurer to transfer appropriations between expenditure function accounts for the 2018 budget appropriations and to conduct interfund transfers to enable balancing, subject to subsequent board approval.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the budget appropriation transfer?
I move to approve the budget appropriation transfer recommendation.
I'll second.
Okay, any comments or questions regarding that? Okay, all those in favor of approving the budget appropriation transfer for taxing funds signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And policy updates.
Okay, tonight we have the first reading of a number of policies that are presented to you for update based on the legislative changes that have come about in House Bill 1009. These simply are changes to the budget fund numbers or fund names, not numbers. That's not a part of the policy. So they are basic updates with red lines sent to you in the board update, but they are posted in their final form on board docs. So tonight, the policies for first reading are 5144 investment income, 5151 collection and forgiveness of debt, 5151.01 threshold for material loss, 5220 budget preparation, and 5800 system of accounting. It's my recommendation that the board move policies as stated above to second reading.
I move that we move all 5 policies to second reading. They were all just literally,
Changing the names of funds.
yeah, changing names. I mean,
I'll second.
Any comments or questions about that? Very cut and dried. All those in favor of moving these policies to second reading signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next.
Okay, and finally for me tonight, we have a resolution for transfer of LIT, which is local income tax funds, formerly known as PTRC, which is property tax replacement credit funds. Those distributed in 2018. And just a note for the board and our public, there was a change in name from PTRC to LIT this year, which I was not aware of, and very little with taxes slipped by me, so that one caught me off guard a little bit. But what we found on the 1782 when we received it for the 2019 year was that they had made this change and had previously told us that we were to distribute that money straight into the general fund. What we at Richmond Community Schools do and have practiced for a very long time is that we provide those funds to be distributed to each of our taxing funds, as that base is from taxes and property tax replacement credit. So tonight I'm asking the board for redistribution or transfer of the 2018 funds back to the taxing funds. Cash flow has been reflective of these funds being in the appropriate taxing fund, as I have stated in the recommendation throughout the year. So it is no change from what you've seen on the cash flow. However, it will be a transfer on your Form 9 documentation. When you see that in January, you'll see the revenue moving from the taxing funds back into the general fund and then back out to the taxing funds, netting a zero. So just an FYI, when January comes, you will see that on all of those forms. So tonight, it's my recommendation that the Board of School Trustees approve the 2018 budget revenue transfers specified above by the adoption of the resolution presented.
Okay, do I have a motion?
I move that we approve the revenue transfers.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any questions about that? Comments? All right, all those in favor of approving the transfers as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Karen. 4.06.
Okay, 4.06, our 2019-20 high school curriculum handbook. I'm going to ask Dr. Arnold if he would speak to that, please.
Great, thank you, Dr. Terrell. This evening, I recommend that the Richmond Community School Board of Trustees approve the RHS 2019-2020 curriculum handbook as presented. Attached, you'll find a summary of those changes, additions, and a few deletions or cleanups, and then the full PDF of the handbook. I think it's important to talk about the amount of work that folks put into making that making the handbook. Preparing the handbook for this evening. The process begins this time of the year, last year, with course recommendations and work, and again, a collaborative effort from lots of folks to make this happen. So again, I recommend the Richmond Community School Board of Trustees approve the RHS 2019-2020 curriculum handbook as presented.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion, please.
Do I have a second? Approve the handbook? Second from Dixie Robinson. Do I have any comments or questions about the high
I
school?
do. Chuck, would you just mind stating that for the public, just for them to know real quick, just any quick changes, like highlight the big ones?
Yeah, we have some new courses, Introduction to Culinary Arts and Hospitality. I think that was I think folks have been wanting to try to revive that for a long time. It's my understanding that we've had that course in the past. A strategic marketing and management course. It builds on a previous principles of marketing course. Preparing for college and careers. I believe this class is going to be something similar to what the early college kids are required to take, just kind of prepping kids for life after high school. And then the AP Computer Science Principles, I'm really excited about this one. It's almost it's a pre-AP course to prep kids for AP Computer Science. Let me get to the deletions real quick. That AP course will replace that pre-AP, if you will, replaces the computer science course. And then we had a partnership with Girls Inc. Through a grant where they had an all-girls health class that was taught and sponsored by Girls Inc. And the funding has ran out for that, so we've switched that over to just a regular health class. Fortunately, the gal that ran that class is now our employee, so many of those same concepts are being taught.
Thank you.
No, go right ahead.
Okay, I was just, where are they gonna put culinary arts?
They just use it in the kitchen lab still.
Okay.
Still early in the process. It won't be, I think, what it used to be yet, but if you follow Rusty on Twitter, they're always doing some really neat things down there. He's
That
always down there
classroom
eating.
restaurant was really good.
Wow.
Had cupcake wars today.
Oh, yeah.
Very nice. All right.
Thank you.
All those in favor of approving the curriculum guide for 2019-20 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. And now we are at 4.07, which is really our agenda item. One of the things that we have to do as a board is we have to set board goals for this year, which we never have formally done. So we have our goals, basically the goals are not very different from last year. And so we need to formally adopt these goals as our 18-19 goals. And so I need your a motion on that.
I'll motion to roll over the goals from last year to this year to create the 2018-2019 goals.
Awesome. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any comments or questions? Very good. All those in favor of adopting the goals for 2018-19 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Now we are to our work session.
All right, at this time, I'd like to invite Bill Payne to the podium, and I'm going to ask him to introduce his associate this evening, someone who I'm sure we will all get to know well throughout this process. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Bill.
All right, well, thank you, Madam President, Dr. Terrell, members of the board. Yes, I am pleased to be here this evening to provide a report on the proposed designs for this work. It's timely that we do it at this point in time, in that part of the criteria for the projects was to attempt to accomplish all, if not most, of the work by the end of the summer of 2019. So I'll explain a little bit more about that. But yes, my colleague is Laura Blankenberg. Laura is our project manager. Laura was here with me touring all the buildings in the development of these proposed designs, and you're right, you will be seeing her frequently. I won't disappear, but she'll definitely make us look good. She will be directing our team's efforts in the development of all of our construction documents and specifications going forward. So the reason I say that it's timely this evening is that we certainly want to procure the best possible, most competitive bids, and we want to make sure that we leave those contractors time to accomplish the work. So the optimum time to secure those competitive bids is early in the year, as early as possible. So we would like to continue forward this evening, developing the design, looking to January and February to start securing either bids or quotes. We'll be talking a little bit about costs this evening. I think that's all good news at this point. Much of the work in the security area is in fact of a size and a scale that you can quote that, rather than going through a formal advertisement of bids. That will speed up that process and ensure that we can be working with local contractors in that process. So I think that'll help considerably as well. And we'll get into that a little bit more as we proceed through the presentation. So, I mentioned this before informally to all of you at ISBA meeting, but thank you again very much for asking us to do this work for Richmond Community Schools. We appreciate the challenge. We look forward to working with you through a successful conclusion. The three major components that we're looking at are entrance security improvements at several of the elementary schools. The second component is media center and student center renovations at the two intermediate schools and at Richmond High School. And then finally, a proposed new elevator at Tiernan Center. So this is the way we've organized the presentation this evening, so we'll go through each one of these. You all know that I'm very informal. Stop me at any time, ask questions. Otherwise, I'll just keep talking endlessly. So entrance security improvements. And I think this is helpful. I like to go back and reference the visioning session that Dr. James Halleck conducted last year, because I think we got a lot of good guidance, which we are referencing back to as we develop these designs. And so these were some of the comments about how to improve security and that entrance quality coming into your buildings. Welcoming feel, but secure environment. Guest entry procedures need to be evaluated. I'm going to be talking primarily about facility improvements, but there are operational side to this, as you all can imagine, that need to be evaluated and possibly in some cases changed to improve the security at the entrances to the building. A consistency throughout the district, and so even though each one of these buildings is very different, I think we've tried to employ or have employed best practices in each case, but in a little bit different way to apply to each one of the different buildings. And then identification technology at all entrances, very important. And so I think there are a couple of components there that we'll talk about. So our design approach is, these are sort of a step-by-step way in which we look at entering the building, allowing entrance into the building, vetting visitors before they're ultimately allowed to get into the building proper. And again, these are really based on best practices, so you are in good company. You wouldn't be surprised to know that this coming summer we will probably be making security improvements to between 20 and 30 buildings. And we have been doing this over the last several years, and we're learning things as we go. So we're trying to employ those best practices here. So initial screening via communications on AI phone, and I use that term, that's a proprietary product, but basically what it is, it's a visual and verbal intercom system at the entrance to your buildings, and you have that presently, and they are AI phones, by the way. but that's a proprietary name, and we've just come to use it pretty much. And add a second camera, so that AI phone provides direct head-on view to the visitor. What you cannot see is what might be behind them, around them. And so having that 360 view of the visitor is important as somebody is vetting them initially at that point. And again, I'm going to span a little bit into operation. We talked about that. Really, I think it's important that we understand what that visitor is there, their purpose for being there. I'm here to see Dr. Terrell. Maybe you take a moment, and the operations now are, Dr. Terrell, were you expecting Mr. Payne? Yes, I was, and he's here on time. So I think there's some protocol there that we want to employ. So once that initial screening happens, then we allow access to a secondary secure area within the building, but with restricted views. So even though they're into that secondary area, which you presently have in one building but not in all, and that's one of the things you're going to be seeing, we've talked about a way in which we don't allow views to see children or staff beyond that point. Now, they are interacting with school staff, with an administrative assistant or whomever at the front desk, but they can't see actually into the building. At that point, a second vetting by office staff is done via proprietary ID screening device. I believe at this point that screening is simply for sexual predators. Maybe in the future there may be a broader screening. Most schools that we see have that device at place at that desk. And in that screening process, if they are vetted, they receive a badge which then goes on their clothing with a picture and so forth, identifying them that they are approved to go into the building. And then and only then are they buzzed into the building for if they are there for some purpose and have a reason to be inside. So what we're going to do is when we walk through each one of your buildings, you're going to see each one of these steps outlined and how we would propose to address that through facilities improvements. This is just sort of a visual reference. So at one of your school buildings, you can see that AI phone directly outside the locked vestibule. And that's typical at each one of your buildings. Once inside that next secure area, this is just an example. We won't put the hot dogs on your schools. You'll have the Red Devils or whomever. This just happens to be Frankfurt High School, excuse me. And so these are decals. You can see out. There's no reduction in the value of visioning from outside, but you can't see in. So we would propose to do that in that next security level. And while they're in that area, then you would have ID screening. This just happens to be a photo of one example. I'm sure there are lots of different proprietary pieces of equipment that could be employed. Okay, so let's start out with Crestdale, which actually is in pretty good shape in terms of these 4 steps. And you'll notice as we walk through each one of these, we'll have an existing plan and then a proposed plan. In this case, Crestdale has that locked vestibule from the outside. It has the AI phone outside, and then we're showing a proposed camera location that would give you that 360 view of the visitors. Once buzzed in by the administrative assistant at the front desk, they then come into the area 2, which is secured. So those doors at number 4 are locked presently. And what we would propose is at that location at 4, we would introduce those decals onto the window so you can actually see into the building. You cannot see students passing by or staff. So you're secured within that area. And it's at item number 3 is where that ID screening takes place. Not surprising, we talked about a lot of different things. And one of the things at this particular school was we usually have what's called a transaction area, which is a lower area where that assistant's at. And so there was some concern, well, what if somebody were to jump the counter? I would say that, I'm not going to say it's unusual because we all know that you can't control everything. So if that's desired, if that's felt to be the need to be employed, we could provide a temporary closure within that slotted area so that now we're talking about a counter height of approximately 42 to 48 inches, which would make that more difficult. But I do think that this arrangement, which is pretty typical of what we see and are employing in most schools, still provides that personal welcoming feel without making it feel like you're coming into something other than a great school environment. So we do not see any further treatment at that location. And again, once they're vetted via the ID and they're badged, then they're allowed, if it's appropriate, they're allowed within the rest of the building. So we actually have two major door locking mechanisms that are providing secure both at the entrance as well as that interior space. So conceptually, before I go any further, this is what we would be employing at each one of the buildings. Differently for each building, because every building's different, but very similar conceptually.
And you said we can ask questions as,
Absolutely.
so Crestdale is a good example. I guess part of, as we look at these enhancements to these entrances, some of the, I guess I'm trying to understand in my head at what is the level of a protection that we're trying to create. And one, bulletproof glass, is that a consideration? Two, when you want to talk about a barrier of going from the first set of doors into the second set of doors, you have that an area in there that you're really not doing anything other than stopping your HVAC systems from going on and off. So when you get into that bigger area, again, what is the level that we're trying to do? Because to me, it doesn't make any sense to put vision restricting devices across section 4 when you could look completely across 3 and then the wall, if you follow that wall down 4, I mean, it's completely open all the way into the hallway. So when you walk in here, this is where the 30-inch counter, 32
Yes.
inch, that's what you're referring to.
Right.
This is, from this point to this point, the whole thing is this high.
Right.
This whole thing here is also open and also low, and the hallway passes through here.
There's glass there.
So that's why I'm trying to, in my head, I'm trying to understand
Okay.
exactly what level of security we're trying to do, because if we want to stop somebody that has a weapon, then we don't want them in here until they've been screened and certified, and
Right.
so.
Right. Excellent points. So let's back up to the outside. So that's the purpose of the AI phone and the secondary camera, and the questions and the protocol of asking questions and visually observing that individual. That's important from an operational standpoint. I failed to mention, let's talk a little bit about the glass. So what we would propose is we would put an intrusion-resistant film on the glass. Bulletproof glass, and Aaron, you would be able to respond to this probably even better than me. It's going to be 3/4 to an inch. We don't put that in any schools except in Detroit. Is the only place we've ever used it. It would not fit the existing doors, and glass would not, frames would not support that. The purpose of the film is to increase the time of a perpetrator attempting to get into the building. So basically what it does is, either with a weapon or with some type of a device, like say a baseball bat, you cannot dislodge the glass for a period of time out of the frame or out of the doors. So if they were to proceed to attack that, that would give the first responders a great amount of time to respond and get there. But we've not put any bullet-resistant glass in any school buildings that I'm aware of, other than Detroit. And so again, I don't think that would be part of the program, would be to do that. So once you've gone through that initial vetting outside and you allow them into that secondary area, I would agree that if there are any windows that continue along that corridor, and by the way, that is a wall, but there are some windows there, we would recommend that you would put some type of a screening device there as well, so that you could not see into that area.
Are you talking about
That window.
here?
Yes.
I mean, it's completely open, it's not even a window.
And how would that work with school staff needing to come up to speak with the secretaries or anything else if they can't see through there? Would they have to come through the door to come all the way into the entrance there to get into the office area to talk? Or, I mean, it's kind of a catch-22 at one point, that are you gonna, if this area, you're gonna be super secure and not allow line of sight, or are you gonna make it 10 times harder for staff to interact with
One thing we've looked
office
at is
personnel.
maybe a sliding glass that's kind of opaque so you can't see through necessarily. And as they come up, they can open that up from that clerical position, so
Into the hallway, you mean?
into the hallway.
Is
Right.
the expectation that the staff would just have additional training and responsibilities in addition to what they're currently doing?
As far as the protocol for entry, yes, we actually had some yesterday, so.
I mean, and I guess I don't know how, we've all been at buildings where we've just buzzed in with no communication. And it's because there's some kid throwing up in the corner. And I mean, I wonder, that has a lot of human factor involved. I mean, it seems like the system should be able to
Which is where your ID system comes
help
in.
some of these.
That's the Raptor system that we're putting in. Yeah. Go ahead, Aaron.
I'll go back to one of your first comments, and that is the consistency in the buildings. And I think the human factor of that is probably going to be the most important thing of all the schools that I visited, you know, helping with the state and the federal government working on school safety and designs for buildings. I know it comes back down to the most the most basic human element of that, and that is that person at that desk has got to be as consistent with the manner in which they let someone in, and that's got to be, I'm not going to be lazy because I know him or I know her and I'm just going to buzz them in. It's got to be a person-to-person, regular encounter with them, of recognizing them, going through the process, and after you leave that building, it's going to have to be the same thing, the same process at the next building you go to. So that just because facial recognition, I'm familiar with her, I'm familiar with her, so I can automatically buzz them in at that point, because that's where the safety factor comes in. When it comes to school safety, one of the, again, I get preachy on this because I've had to do this for the last 20 years, and that is, again, it's the kind-hearted person today. We don't know what has happened in their lives over the last 24 hours. That kind-hearted person that you saw yesterday may be coming here with a mission today. And that is where the importance of that human factor, the consistency in every building comes into be. And it goes beyond bulletproof glasses or the mirrored windows. So,
Well, and I'm not trying to critique. What I'm trying to understand is, you talked about the guiding principles and you talked about the vision, but I'm kind of looking at it a little bit differently, because we've all been in those school buildings at 8 o'clock when school starts and at 2:30 when it's out, and you've got 50 people coming in through those doors. So I'm just trying to understand, the concept that we're talking about construction expense, which is easily accountable for by the bonding that we've done, but it also makes me wonder whether we would be more enhanced with security with personnel. Because in so many of these buildings, you have one person that's right there that's monitoring. To have a vision system, and I'm just trying to be realistic, and just say that where position 1 is at 8 o'clock in the morning or 2:30 in the afternoon, I can't see one person in that secretarial place vetting and looking at all the cameras for as much traffic that's going to go in and out of that door.
it would be overwhelming.
It would be unfair to put any expectation on one person to be able to handle that. So that's why I'm trying to understand all of the guiding principles that when we look at these enhancements, when we look at these areas, what is the common theme that we're going? That's why I asked the question about glass or one, I'm just trying to.
Yeah, this system is not designed for student entrance at the beginning of the day or student exit. That would be a totally different program. That's not going to satisfy this need.
Right.
I
This is
agree.
one person at a time.
Yes. Once all students are in the building, then you are in this mode, and this is how you, operationally, how you address until 2:30 when you dismiss.
Because, Crestdale is a good example of the way it's set up, because if you would enclose and put safety glass in that whole opening across the section 3, and you have your vision system there and you're recording and you're scanning somebody in. To me, that's a whole nother level of protection versus whether the counter is 42 inches tall or 32 inches tall. If that unit's not enclosed, then I would argue that we're doing very little to improve that system. I mean,
But isn't that why you have that first section? I mean, that's where you're,
So, yeah, again, the initial vetting outside at the AI phone.
that's
with the other
outdoors, you're
camera,
outside the building
That's
altogether.
locked, yeah. You can't get in unless you pass that point.
But that is
What's the
where,
test at that point?
what's the
Purpose of visit, individual, confirmation that if they're there for a purposeful visit, just a little bit more due diligence.
John, you're right, unless the human element of that, the
Yes.
training of it isn't consistently applied, you're right, and we have all been there where they just reach over and buzz you in, even at this building, which has gotta change, and so that's part of the training we've begun, and we have established additional dates for our staffs to do that. But it's gonna mean that there are gonna be times that, I show up at a building as a parent and I don't have an appointment, and I'm gonna have to stand out in the cold, and while the secretary checks, and may come back and say, I need to schedule an appointment and get back with you. Well, again, that's part of this.
One of the things we have not done a lot of times is turn people away, you know, unless they just wanna come in and kinda lounge in the foyer, we don't allow that anymore, but we don't turn away a lot of people, and that's something that we have to be consistent with, and as administrators support that too with our frontline people, with secretaries, clericals, that if they turn someone away who might wanna see the principal and so forth in an ad hoc nature, or a teacher, you know, sir, ma'am, you're gonna have to set up an appointment and come back at a time when that teacher knows you're gonna be there and so forth. It might mean we see more people over here that have a concern about that, but we have to be consistent, and we have to support that too with, you know, with that order, cause our main thing is to keep as many people out that we can, cause once they do get in there, then they're inside, and once they're inside, it's hard to get them outside. And so, especially when you have a limited staff up front and so forth, and they're doing their job, clericals, secretaries,
If there's
front
a
office,
thousand
so-
reasons for a parent or an adult to come to the school without an appointment, I mean,
But I think those are legitimate.
my kid forgot his notebook, forgot his lunch, needs lunch money. I wanna see the teacher cause he got a bad grade and I'm just dropping by. I mean, I hope and to have the secretary pool, which is, you know, maybe one's to have a lunch, or at the bathroom break, or at lunch break, and there's one person, and there's 4 kids up front, and there's a passing period. I mean, I'm with Jeff, I mean, I don't know if the system's set up for 2 staff to operate it and do everything else that they do.
I think it's also important, we have to look at what is best practices, what are common practices that are out there. We could wed ourselves into insanity when you start thinking about, and that's one of the big challenges as we go, and those around this table who are certified school safety specialists, when you go to that training, you leave there with the sick feeling in your stomach of all the things that could go on. So again, it's kind of like when you see something happen out on the highway, if there's an accident, what are you responsible for? Well, there's the Good Samaritan law that kind of says you've got to do something, but how limited is that? The same approach is necessary for us here. We can't make this Detroit where you're walking into a bulletproof glass environment and it's not welcoming, but at the same time, what's prudent? What is reasonable as you look at the situations that are going on around the state and our country?
and some of the other practices are after school, which I know that we've been working our way towards that at some of the schools, which is not every parent needs to come in the building to collect their child that walks home or that gets a ride home. So we've been taking the students to the cars, if they're car riders, at most of the elementary schools, if not all of them. And so those are, where in the past, every parent that was picking up their kid was walking into the building, and that, now we're,
Right,
our
they're outside.
people are taking them out and meeting them at the car, which that's another one of those practices that doesn't have anything to do with any of this, but it's a better practice than having every person walking in, so.
We have a similar, in the mornings, they bring them up to the door, drop them off and leave. first day of school, we have a little more flexibility in that,
Right.
you know, for the kindergarten or first grade dropping off. But that's one day, and we have a little more heightened awareness. We have more administrators out there, more people, more adults. But after that, it is drop off, and, you know, we'd rather have them maybe come to the curb and drop them off and so forth. But they can walk them up to the door, but beyond that, they're not welcome in there, so. Because our goal is to make sure that our students are protected as much as possible.
Right, and you have to be in there, that's one thing, but if you don't need to be in there, then you don't.
And again, John, I agree. You know, I need to see the teacher because a bad grade came in, but can we set up an appointment because maybe that teacher can't meet with you right now at that ad hoc time? Set it up for tomorrow. Let the front office know that Mr. Weber's gonna be here at 2:30 to see Mrs. Smith and so forth. So it's a different operational protocol and so forth. But it's something that I think is very, very important, so. And that we support that as administrators too, to let that, there's gonna be some times where they can ask the person to come back, which is kind of unusual, but we want to make sure we have that barrier there, so.
Dixie?
The other thing that concerns me is like at Crestdale, you've got that open area at 3 with the secretaries, the principal, she comes back and forth by. You have other buildings, thinking of Dennis and Test, where the offices do have doors and glass, secured glass, better glass.
But they're outside of this,
Yeah, but,
you
And the-
gotta walk right past them.
and I know that these are elementaries, but every
Can't
time
walk
I
past
walk
them.
in the Hibbert building, it's just way too open.
Which one?
Hibbert,
In Dennis and Tess, you can't walk
You
through
can't
those
walk
doors,
past
they're
them. Right.
locked.
You can't.
You have to go into the office to get to the next level.
And then they can buzz you through.
I guess
so.
I just got lucky a kid came out when I go through.
Absolutely.
That's a whole other person
Well,
problem.
and you're right, there's another example.
Because
that,
that's how the kids go to the office.
the human element can defeat any one of these devices. I mean,
Well, that's why I was.
So, that's why the operational side is so important.
You see Aaron's-
So have are the ladies that work at the section 3, have you do they want glass or do they not want glass? I mean, have we had any input from the?
Yeah, we spoke to them, and they want some kind of barrier there. They'd feel more protected if there was something there to slow down maybe a person who could leap over that, so,
Higher counter.
yeah, a little higher counter and so forth, so,
Aaron?
so.
I'll wait till you're
Yeah,
finished.
that's good.
And I guess I'll throw it back to you, Bill, because I understand that, we've got two different roles here. Yours is the nuts and bolts and the bricks and the mortars, and those proposals. Ours is going to be, after we get through this, ours is going to establish the protocols, the human protocols that are going to be consistent. And also, I've got a lot of questions regarding to the safety factor that falls upon the human element. And I'm just, just wait to see what more that you have in regards to the bricks and mortar of it to make them as safe as we can.
Jeff, thanks for pointing that out. I overlooked the fact that was open above over there, that higher wall. But you're right, we would want to address that at Crestdale to again restrict views into the corridor.
So are we safe to assume that all the designs that we're looking at is we want to create a holding area, I guess number 2, that no one could get through or over unless they were buzzed in?
Well, I don't know that we can say no, that they couldn't, because, so if we put in glass, you can break the glass and get over it.
Well, but what I mean is some barrier other than.
Yes, just for clarification,
Yeah,
yes.
right. I mean, that's,
A countertop, whether there's glass there or not, yes, there's a
Because-
barrier.
because, like you said earlier, the new Raptor system that we're going to after the first of the year, right now just does the, sexual
How
predators.
long does it take for the Raptor system to come back with flags?
It's instant.
Yeah,
Instant?
it's very fast.
Okay.
As fast as the internet allows that particular time, let's say that.
Yes, that's our internet.
But I could see that being expanded to people with
Faster
warrants, people
light.
with, but then, which is gonna pose a whole nother set of problems,
Yeah.
because of child custody and.
And that's a great issue right there because of the ever-changing issues with family structures and all.
That stuff is, if we know of it, is stored in Power School, so.
So
Flags
that's
are
my
on it.
next question, is there a connection between Raptor and Power School to talk to each other, basically, to where if we enter something in Power School that says Johnny's dad cannot pick him up, and Johnny's dad comes and scans his ID, that it automatically flags? Is that communication level there between the Raptor system and Power School?
It's one of the features that would be added.
You-
Right.
Yeah, you can customize
You
it.
can
and
customize your data.
add
You can?
those, yeah, you
Okay.
can add those flags.
Okay, thank you.
And it-
Alerts.
They also look them up in Power School, directly as well, so.
Sure.
Cross-reference all of that.
So in other words, if
But
you,
it'd be nice if they scan that ID, immediate flag comes up, says, hey, he cannot pick up Johnny, so.
Right.
I would throw one other suggestion in there, and I'll shut up for the moment. And that is, in those schools where we have resource officers, they have access to RMS systems as well. So that if through either of those systems, if there does seem to be a red flag with information that needs to be extended, to contact the resource officer, and they can do an immediate check right there. There may be more to be concerned about than just that red flag of that person for some custodial issue there.
Well, it's
I know
interesting you brought up the RSOs because, one of the questions, actually, a couple of the questions we got 4 RSOs, right? RSOs? SROs.
Richmond got a new orchestra.
We've got 4 in our system, correct?
yes.
And they're, at the middle schools, or intermediate schools.
And the high school.
Right.
So, I was wondering that, maybe we ought to take a look at, do we direct them or are those directed by the sheriff's department?
It's a joint collaboration, so they get their arresting powers from, the sheriff's department, Wayne County Sheriff's Department. They get their training, through them, they get training through us, but they also take, I wouldn't say orders, but we work with them to put them in positions if we need to put them in a different place, if we need to maybe move them to a different school temporarily and so forth.
Well, it
So-
makes me wonder if maybe we ought not take a look at maybe expanding the SROs.
Just money.
That's our.
We also have a,
School resource
School
officer.
Ron, do you want to jump in? It looked like you had something else.
I'm not sure what the question was about.
Well, just, we have these resource officers. If we start going through the scanning process, it makes me wonder if maybe in some of these facilities that have limited staff, that maybe we go more, maybe that would do more to enhance the security.
Maybe they're the ones that are doing the scanning.
Let them be the ones doing the scanning.
Ooh, I don't know that I'd tie down enough. I wouldn't tie
Yeah,
a
that'd
school
be a-
resource
that'd be a
officer
little
down
scary.
to
they have
that.
different duties.
One of the features, and I know that you guys have seen in board updates with the information from Raptor, that it does is we can set up who it emails when that person is flagged as being a sexual predator
remember
or
that
there's
now.
something wrong there.
I remember
So that can go to the principal, that can go to the director of that level, it can go to Rob, it can go to whoever we need that to go to, so that way instantly they're alerted of the situation.
So it can
Now-
go to the school resource officer.
Right. But also then in our elementary buildings where we do not have a school resource officer, we can have other protocols set up as to where that's going. Most of the schools that we've talked with, the main person that goes to is the school administrator, the building administrator, so that they can instantly deal with the situation right there. And again, 911 is always the thing that they need to look at.
Well, and I'm just saying, you actually have more issues with custody or who's allowed to pick up and not pick up than you do anything else, and where it really gets heated.
Yeah. Which is, again, is a good reason for those barriers that you can't see through.
Right.
Because then you don't know. And when you study, Aaron, you can back me up on this one, but when you study the school shootings that have taken place around our country, typically the classrooms, the students that are impacted by that are the ones who are seen. Whether they're in a classroom, whether they're in a hallway, wherever they may be, the biggest deterrent, one of the biggest deterrents, I'll say, is making sure that they're out of the line of sight. And so again, having that in place is a big piece of this.
I really do like that idea, the masking into the next area. and then until they've been cleared, and then they move through. I think that's,
So I'm still stuck on the counter versus the glass. To me, that's vastly different. I mean, I can be over a counter, even me, fairly quickly.
Even
whereas
me. Come
where
on,
if it's a
man,
piece
give
of
yourself
glass, I mean, so when do we make that decision? Or are we, I mean, I guess is it time to say we want glass, or are we just gonna let that float out there? Or, I mean, who makes that decision? When do we make it?
We can talk through that. I mean, for sure, if you guys,
This is initial designs,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah,
This
what is
we're
it that
bringing this
you-
to the board.
yeah, I think somebody said it's just money.
And this
And I think this is a
this
good
is a work
opportunity.
session, so I
Right.
mean,
yeah,
it's time
what
for
is it that
input.
you see in, I mean, you've done,
Right.
you say you're about to do 30 of
So we
these.
don't, yeah, so we don't lose that human element. I mean, at some point, there has to be human interaction. Unfortunately, that could go awry. Obviously, something could go wrong. But if we lose that human interaction, if we keep separating the visitors that should be there, then we're losing the quality that everybody was talking about in the visioning session. I
Right.
realize it's a careful balance there. I certainly wouldn't advise you against glass, and it certainly would not be bullet resistant. The negative is, what if they choose to take a hostage within that controlled area,
Which area are we talking?
within 2 and 3, because they can't get to the other, so they take a hostage. Now,
That
what
would
do you,
just
what are you
be
gonna
like
do?
someone that walked in with them.
Yeah.
I mean, when
Or
we-
another visitor. Yeah. That's the reason that in many banks, at one point, you used to see bullet-resistant glass at the tellers, and it all went away. Unfortunately, hostage-taking defeated that concept.
I mean, I guess when I look at it, we were talking secured entrances. I mean, and I just, if I can hop 2 counters and be in the building, it doesn't seem to be secure.
Okay, so the next step, and maybe this would help, is that, so we're looking at that door immediately to the left of the reception area. So the positive is, in almost every case, that is entering into the office from the corridor. We can make that a buzz door as well, so it would be locked.
I think you're talking about.
Oh,
This
the
one
one
right
out into the,
Off the hallway.
There.
That
So
leads
even
to
if you hop the counter, you can't get into the corridor.
This is the office doors.
so someone would actually have to buzz you in or out of the office as well.
Or fobbed, right.
Or
Kids
fobbed.
Staff could fob their way out.
Kids and people
Ah.
walking through there into that area, because you've got the nurses station.
Yeah, and that the nurses.
Yeah, but for them to get out of the office, the secretary have to buzz the door to let them out.
At least eliminate that.
Once again, it all goes back to there's gonna have to be change in human
Right.
behavior as well. I mean, there just has to be.
I actually kind of like the idea of maybe the higher counter and then the buzz door there, maybe versus the glass.
And I think, again, with the glass, we have that human element then of keeping the glass shut, or, you know what I mean?
Oh, that's
So
no
then,
doubt.
as soon as an irate person comes in, if we are in the habit of just leaving it open, then we gotta try and shut it real fast and secure it. And securing,
actually a
securing
thing.
sliding
That's true.
glass is a challenge because you have to have the brace and again, not that it's a bad thing. I think we just have to look at the whole thing realistically and talk through what are the other changes that have to take place, like
Yeah.
buzzing in and out to come in and see the nurse.
I mean, I guess I would go back, the simplest solution is often the best, and by barricading it there, that's much simpler than having now another door with another buzz, or, I mean, is everyone gonna have fobs, really, or is that the
They already
idea?
do.
Yeah, they already
Okay.
do, yeah.
I mean, what about the kid? I mean, I think kids go to the nurse's station without a.
Well, you
student
can
ID.
come into the office from the corridor.
Right.
You have to fob your way back out.
So the door, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, I mean, my opinion would be we should put glass up if we're gonna have secured entrance, but
Hey, John, let me ask you about glass. Are you talking sliding glass, or do you foresee glass with like a little cutout pass-through? What are your thoughts there?
At the city building, of course, in my department, we've got bulletproof glass there, okay?
Yeah.
But it's also, you can get a user-friendly glass that won't be bulletproof, but it'll be thick enough.
Shatterproof?
Yeah, but, you know, it slides. It slides open.
I mean,
It slides open and closed.
this is what we're paying these guys for.
And, you know, one of the advantages of that is you can tell when somebody's coming in who's angry, okay? And you can close that. And to extend that even further, health factors too. People come in with illnesses and everything else. Keep it closed and
but that's another story.
Are you talking about glass doorways or just glass as opposed to a counter?
Over the counter, so if that's counter and you're a secretary, you'd
See, I mean, we,
have a piece of glass in
at the
front of
county,
you.
you might go down and look, on the third floor, we put in, glass installations on top of the perimeter around
Right.
the stairwell. And that was entirely to prevent people on the third floor from jumping. And, you know, it's pretty secure now. They're not bulletproof, but,
It does the trick.
yeah, I mean, and then they're probably, what, 40,
They're high.
you know, 40 inches above the 2.5 foot, 3 foot marble base.
But John, back to your point, that is what we pay them to do, but at the same time, I think the board needs to, if we're gonna talk through glass and that we feel more comfortable with glass being there, I think we need to talk through, is sliding glass enough?
Right, the
I mean,
balance, right.
Or do we need to have something that's stationary, that has cutout, that's no bigger than, I mean, you guys have been to different places and
Like a
seen that.
bank or something.
Yeah, where you have that interaction to slide things back and forth.
You have your speaker
And you have a
hole.
little
To
hole that
have
you
my-
can talk through. Is that enough? Because if not, then we have that, okay, so now we put in the sliding. What does it take to secure a sliding glass pane? One more thing that person there has to now buzz them, has to do Raptor, has to then real quickly shut the glass. I mean, those are just things we need to talk through. And
While answering
I think
the
we can see it
phone,
either
taking
way.
care of kids.
Right.
Yeah, they
Or
got
do you
it.
just go in and set like a veil, like, you know, so you have, the counter is 3 foot tall,
Okay,
you
my,
have just like a 3
controller
foot
quit
tall
working.
piece of,
Yeah.
and it's all open on top.
Like a
And,
salad bar, sneeze.
Like a salad bar, yeah.
Well, but we had actually talked to, Bill, you had brought that up with looking at
Yeah, I can't,
glass that was 24, 36 inches tall.
my controller quit working,
Right.
I can't
Well,
find where I'm at in my
mean-
presentation.
Bill, can you talk to that, the glass that we talked about that was like 24 inches tall or 36 inches tall to kind of be that additional barrier? And I think, what would the possibility be there for that? I know Laura had brought that up at one time, I think, too, didn't you, Laura?
Yeah, absolutely. So that would be a possibility. That was after you all discussed amongst yourselves, I was gonna ask the question. So are we talking about, you know, glass from the top of the counter to the ceiling with a sliding glass door in the middle? Are we talking about sort of a protector up this high with sliding glass? What was your thoughts? And again, I would just say there's not a right or wrong answer. We're not doing that anywhere else. But if you like that idea and it feels good, it feels appropriate, then the question is, how much would you like to see?
You know, my thoughts on this thing are you can never err too much on the side of caution when it comes
Yes,
to
you
kids'
can.
safety. No, you can't.
Well, because, and I'm not gonna say that, obviously, kids' safety is primary, obviously. I'm just saying, then the issue that you run into is this, are we welcoming? So there is a balance
Well,
there,
if you
and
do-
so
Well,
that's what I'm saying, what I mean about that.
if you do a full height glass with, you know, even down at RP&L, they've got the microphone thing to speak. I mean, we don't need to go that route, maybe we do. But with the perf coverings that you can put over where you can see out very clearly, it's probably a 80% barrier to see in, to where you've really got to look to see what's going on. And with that, you can print all kinds of different designs and logos and murals and everything else and have that installed. This can be a very welcoming area still, but still secure enough to where, you
You
know,
mean between them and the person they're talking to, put that stuff up?
on the sides of the counter, between the
You
lower.
got full height glass on the sides, and then in the center you'd have some sort
It'd
of
still be
door
full
mechanism,
height, but it would be
either sliding or hinged or
or clear. I don't like the idea of sliding or hinge there, because to go what Todd was saying, that you get the human factor there. How often are they going to keep that thing closed? And we've all seen things. It happens in an instant. You're not going to have time to get up there and lock it and put a bar down and everything else.
a lot of times you see
You
what
know,
the offset.
we might get an initial setback from some people like, man, this thing looks like a prison or whatnot. But at the same time, when you're talking about,
We got that at the high school. when
you've
we
got,
started.
you've got someone's kid in there, you got my kid in there, I would rather err on the side of caution than, but we feel welcome. No, I'm not gonna,
About the employees
I'm
that are
not-
working in
I'm
that
not doing that.
space.
Yeah.
I mean, we're
we need to get
basically
their
saying
input, first of all.
If someone jumps, I mean, we've done nothing to secure their job environment. They've been buzzed in and maybe, I'm sure correctly, but then they decide they're sitting ducks.
So it could be similar to at the athletic department. If you guys think about right across from McConnell room, there's that window there where they used to do, that's where the ticket
Yeah.
exchange was. And there's a cutout at the counter level where you can pass things back and
Sure.
forth. And then up, right at whatever
There's a
level that
circle to
is,
talk
there's that
to.
circle there where you can communicate back and forth with people.
Yes.
If we're gonna go glass, what I would think is if we're putting the extra resources towards that, which is fine, it doesn't make sense to not go that far with it. Where
Rather
we
than
don't have
sliding
that human
doors.
element to
Right.
get over there and shut it real quick.
I would rather go full glass and minimize the passageways to prevent anything. More than anything, like even what you said with the communicable diseases. I mean,
I'm talking about flu.
you know what I'm talking about.
I do know what you're talking about, yeah.
Yeah, I mean flu
A
or
lot of people
whatever.
bring in a lot of things.
I mean, that's what part of the reason why I asked the question is because how we all perceive this makes a difference on how we look at all of the
Right.
applications. Now, the other thought that I had was, and, you know, if we make this area secure, then at least the intruder wouldn't get into the building.
Right.
Whoever is out here might have to be sacrificed.
Well, but it's also why
On tape.
they're the most responsible.
Email
for
Jeff
vetting,
Slifer
too.
at J
That's what
Slifer.
I'm saying is that if we still want to keep, and I don't mean it to sound as cold as I did, but if we want to keep it warm and inviting, then at least we need to close this off.
I agree with that, and I like the idea of you have to buzz out into the building even
So,
from that door.
At
'Cause
least
everyone
then
who
we've
lives there
protected the
has a badge.
kids. Because our primary focus is to protect everybody, but I mean, we definitely want to stop, them from getting into the building.
I really like Todd's idea, because as a parent going into a school, I'd rather know that you are doing everything, not just keeping my children safe, but the staff there as well. So I'm okay with, it doesn't look like a prison, it's all about your mindset and what you interpret it to be. But I love the idea of the little half-moon shape and the speaker to speak through, plus that keeps everybody safe. And like you said, no diseases, and it's just a better fit. We need to do something like that. I mean, I get the warm fuzzy stuff that some people want to do, and the warm fuzzy stuff is okay, but we're also talking about safety for the staff and the kids.
There's some practical changes that would have to happen for that to work too,
So-
though, right? Because they have to be set up to look up and do the things they need to do at the counter then, at that point.
So
Because you'll be talking to people through the counter, and their workstation is at their desk. So wouldn't there have to be a workstation at the counter then
Yeah,
too, to make that
absolutely.
work?
Or they'd have to get up and walk over there.
They'd have to go back.
Yeah,
concept is all of
there's a
the
practical side to this, how many visitors actually come. I realize there's probably periods of time where you have more than one, but
Right.
during the entire day,
Yeah, that's the
so
question.
getting up and moving to that location is probably not too big of an ask.
So my next question, I guess, is, do we let them get through that second set of double door or the triple doors, to where you've got the AI and the airphone out front, where they can do the initial screening? That corridor in there, which I think Jeff alluded to, was basically just for HVAC to prevent it from escaping the building. We make that the area where they scan the Raptor. If everybody's ID has the barcode on the back of it, or the QR code, is the Raptor, and I don't know about this, is the Raptor system set up to where we can have a scanner out there where you can just hold your ID up there and it scans it, and that does the initial?
You have to insert it into
It's really not self-service, is kind of what you're getting at. right?
Yeah, I'm asking, I don't know if, I mean,
They could, part of it can be, but if it's not
I
operational.
bought gas today. I inserted my payment card to pay, but before I did that, I did my Speedway card. They've got a little laser down there. You hold the thing underneath and it zaps it. That's why I'm asking is, is something like that where you can just hold your ID up to it and I don't know.
I understand what you're saying.
Right,
I did,
yeah.
the
But there-
system that we're looking at right now that's not the intended use of it.
Okay.
So are you suggesting them putting like the Raptor system here?
Correct.
And then once they
Right.
have instant approval, then
Right,
you
so
can go in there and not
the
worry
rooms
about
next to
changing
that
anything in there?
corridor, what are in those rooms? To where, could we expand the office area a little bit right there to include the office staff to be able to have a window into that corridor?
Well, you're talking about
So
moving
you-
walls.
Yeah, big time now. That's a
I think at
big
this po- I
change.
think at this point, it would be just as easy to put the glass at
Right.
item 3.
Okay. And I mean, this is one of 7 buildings we're looking at too.
Yeah.
So,
You'd also move a staff member too, so the staff member would be, or adding a staff member. You could position a staff member here to be kind of a kiosk person to interact with that person coming in, but then that person is
Trapped,
probably no longer used
basically.
for up here. Our clericals also do other
Let's
tasks.
clarify, adding a responsibility to a person, not adding a person.
Well, yes.
It would take a
But
person is what
one
he's
thing we
saying
did
though.
find, when we talked to the principals, was they didn't wanna lose that staff member up here, to be repositioned at that, if we could, maintain that, so. Which, we know, sometimes, just like I think John said, this person goes to lunch, so you need that coverage, with secretarial, clerical and so forth, or she's out, or whatever, but,
Or like you said, holding
they
somebody's
use them, they
hair.
use those people all
in
the
the
time.
nurse's office.
So if you put them here, or, this is the office,
Mhm.
so, and this is the library, so, in this particular configuration. So you
what
can
do you mean
position
the
somebody
office?
there,
What
but
do you mean
then,
by office? At the principal's office?
Principal's
Okay.
Office.
right, as principals,
Okay, because I thought the whole thing, the whole thing's the office here. Yeah.
I'm sorry, as principal's
Right.
office. And this used to be the original library, if you remember, we cut this out to
Yeah.
expand this lobby area,
Okay.
but, so this is the library, that little keyhole there with some computers there, but.
Okay.
Yeah, it seems to me of all what you just said, probably the thing that, the concept that does the best job of that is the glass at the counter.
Is
Really.
everybody comfortable with the glass at the counter being
Out
stationary?
of those
with
options,
the
I would
cutouts?
be, I would go with
I
that
am.
option. That'd be my,
Aaron, do you feel comfortable
Oh, I
with
feel
that?
comfortable with it. The best solution is, it's too late to rebuild a building in the office, because the higher the office area is, when
Right.
they're looking down at the people who are in there, that's the best defense there. But that's another story. I just wanted to ask one thing.
Yes.
Because of where the library is, that glass will be filmed over also?
It could be.
It's got
Again,
blinds
the
in it
question
now.
is,
Lines in it now, but yeah, it could.
oh, are you talking about within,
Blinds, yeah.
within the
when
lobby
in,
area?
Yeah,
in the
the waiting
lobby,
area.
in the 2-3, you can still see into the,
there's
I believe
blinds
there's
from the
blinds there right
inside.
now
I
to
think
limit that,
there are blinds there now.
Yes.
to limit that view.
okay.
Brad and I actually went around all of the buildings Monday night.
They're not always
Looked
closed.
at all
They're
the
like a
entrances.
mini blind type blind, but, you could put in protocol where it
Which
stays
makes me
closed,
think
or,
all the board members
I'm
need to
I'm
get
okay with
keys
doing
because I
the
couldn't get into
one-way.
the room.
If we keep the
I
blinds
wanted to
in,
go around to
that's
the
fine.
other side of the wall.
Well,
Thank you.
If you'll let me know, I'll be more than happy to make sure you guys are able to get wherever you need to be.
But, well, just give us all master keys and we won't have to worry about it.
yeah, that's a good idea.
Well, but we've agreed that you're to let me know when you're going in, so.
Okay. Let's, keep
Well,
moving.
before we go on though, off of the glass, so
Kind
far
of
you
just
three
kinda
are good
pulled
with
board
doing
here.
I
the,
want to do the glass.
you guys are good with doing the
I'm-
stationary with the cutouts.
Out of all the options I've
Suzanne?
heard, I'd be okay with the stationary glass.
I could live with that. I would like to hear what the office staff have to say about that.
Well, we've talked with them. Rob talked with them the other
And
day
they
and
want it.
they said that they would prefer some kind of,
Yeah,
Some
that's
kind
a
of barrier.
concern, especially at this building, we're at Crestdale. So some kind of
We'd
barrier
want to
there, so.
address the, audio, I guess, if you will. We have that at where I work,
Mhm.
and there's just a hole, and it's often very difficult to hear the
It'd have to be a
person on the
microphone.
other side of the
it
glass.
has to be a microphone?
There isn't one where
Enhanced,
we are.
so that when you talk, you can hear them, because that lobby could get a little busy, and so you wanna make sure that
It's
as they come
very
in,
difficult to hear through that glass even with a hole,
make sure that, you know.
because not everybody's mouth is at the right place. Just so, I know that sounds crazy, but depending on the height of the person,
Dixie, what are your thoughts?
doesn't go through.
I'm okay with the glass, but I could also be okay
The height.
with it open a little more, but with some high-intensity training to secretaries, like the de-escalation part that the teachers take, you know. And
Not all.
the thing of it is getting people to be consistent.
Absolutely.
That's what worries me. So,
Well, I
I guess I'll
think-
go back to glass.
I think that's my big concern, is I think we're overwhelming the one or two people that's gonna
Right.
be responsible for this. You'll never see more than two people, and most often you'll see one, and then most often that one person is
On the phone.
on the phone or extremely busy with someone else, or,
But aren't they doing that now?
A lot
They're
of
doing,
cases,
a lot of them are doing
they-
like
they're
at
kicking them
dentists,
out.
they're doing that now.
well, right now, though.
Buzzing people in and,
Well, I know,
Keep it
parents
out,
walk in, they
so.
sign a tab, they get a little sticker, they put it on, they kind of self-serve
not without
themselves.
knowing, they always ask questions.
No,
They're dentists, they ask questions like, who are you here to see? Then they call the people and ask them before they allow you to go anywhere in that building. They just don't automatically
And
give
that's
you
the
anything.
perfect example, because at dentists it is, but then
Right.
you go to other buildings and they just reach
not.
over and then figure they'll catch
Yeah.
you when you come in.
Oh,
So,
no.
John,
Yeah.
how about your thoughts?
I mean, I think I was pretty clear, I like glass.
The stationary though, or the sliding?
I mean, I, doesn't really matter.
Would you be okay with the stationary?
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
Well, I'm really torn. I mean, that's the primary reason why I asked the first question in the beginning. What is the goal of what we wanna do? If our goal is truly to stop, penetration from someone, then we have to close off section 3. Or the opening on the other side on this particular example into the hallway. You know, horizontal there where that door 4 is,
which exposes your employee.
which exposes the one or two employees you have in the front, so.
What you just said, your first statement there was your goal was to close off that area. I think that almost is your,
Well,
But you could put a higher counter with the
True.
glass that's harder, you know, not all the way up, but just extend and then make that door a badge door. You know, you gotta have a badge to get out and still
one
accomplish
thing that I'm sure of,
most.
we can go ask 100 people and we're gonna get 99
question.
different.
No question.
And we need to do something now, whether it's full glass or glass up so it's 6 or 7 feet high. I guess I could live with either one of those.
Yeah, it'd probably just go up to the ceiling so that we restrain it, you know, so rather than trying to get it to cantilever up, so I would say just, we'll take it to the ceiling
do
in
a
most
fixed
cases.
connection.
Makes sense.
And we'll look at
And-
having the
and-
cutouts then, and
Right.
we'll look into seeing what we need to do. I hate to sit here and say we have to put a microphone in every one of them. Let's investigate that and see where we're at.
But also, I mean, would we be creating too much work to communicate that to the people in these offices to say this is where we're leaning and have them be
So,
able to?
What I'm hearing is that's what they
They've
want,
already
is
done
they
that.
want a
Okay.
barrier.
We've already
what
had
they
that
want.
conversation.
Then I guess then,
They wanna feel less, exposed
Yeah.
to that because, they know what's going on, but they're also, they have safety in mind as well for our kids, and so, I think if we could, Dennis is a good example of where you as a visitor might be standing in the elements for a while, because we don't have a canopy there outside, or, so, those challenge questions should really take place before they get past 1.
Yep.
You know, and if Mrs., Smith hasn't told the office that she has a visitor coming, then maybe they need to call Mrs. Smith first and say, do you have a visitor coming, and can you tell us who? Okay, now we'll buzz you in, get through, and then go through that next process, so. And it's inconvenient, cause it's cold out, rainy, hot, so forth, but my thing is keep that person on the outside as long as possible. It's a lot easier to keep that bad person
More control.
out to get them out, so.
The only other question I would have is with 3, if we put glass in there and make that full glass, to add some warmth to it, which is a concern, then I don't think that we should screen it. I think it should be
I agree.
as clear as possible.
Between the person and the
Secretary,
clerical
yeah.
folks,
Right.
agreed. Between the building and.
I'm okay with screening the
Yeah, I agree
hallway
with
and
that.
making sure that going back into the library, I'm okay with that, but I think if
If
we
it's
add,
ceiling, there's no point.
if the filling there is.
The whole thing, or just the counter area that's lowered to speak?
I think the
Well-
whole thing it'd be fine to be
It would
open.
look better.
I mean,
Yeah,
clear.
I think,
But you're gonna have, phone numbers and Post-it notes, and it's gonna
Yeah.
get cluttered with
And,
stuff.
and the,
Mike?
like the perf covering or the window tint, I mean, that's always something that can be added if,
True.
if we see, we just still don't feel right, then.
I just think if we walk up into a glass that has a bunch of steel frames in it and wires in it and it's
Right.
I'm not
frosty,
talking about,
then,
You gotta look to see who you're
you know,
talking to.
Now we've imposed a whole different feeling, so.
Well, I mean, in school design or building design, new safety issues, you get, I'm sure you get recommendations of some kind that you're supposed to put
Yeah,
in
this
buildings.
is the current practice. Actually, this is a little bit more secure in that, in many cases, once you get into 2, you actually have access into the office, and then as Mr. Slifer was explaining, then we have to buzz in. We do have that back wall is controlled, and you have to buzz into the balance of the building, but you can physically get in touch with the administrative folks. So we don't have that additional barrier. It's a little bit different here, and everybody's different. And I think this idea of introducing that clear glass there doesn't limit that human connection, but at the same time provides a barrier to somebody who's wanting to jump the counter. And you're right, Brad. You can always come back and add something to it if you choose to, if that doesn't quite do it.
that's a very low cost item, that screen. In fact, I'm pretty sure our drafting department has the capability to print that window screen and put it up. Used to, so.
All right, well, I appreciate the discussion because it allowed us to
Absolutely.
think through the process, so.
Well, and it is, I mean, it's not just a no-brainer. Just block it all off because you do have to interact with families. You do have to interact with people from the public who come in and volunteer in our buildings. There are people that come in and out and need and should be there. So you don't want them to feel like you don't want them there either.
I mean, I guess as a parent that could walk into the elementary schools, I mean, when you start buzzing in, that kind of signals the change, I think.
Of course, of
And
course.
I think at that point, why not make it secure? Because I'm already having to buzz in, and that's a much different feeling than opening the door and walking in and saying hello.
And I think people have come around to the fact, as many things that's happened this year and last year, they're realizing we have to do something. So I think it's, the attitudes are changing.
It'll become our new normal.
Yeah.
Well, just as, I think it's a test where there are footprints to where you're supposed to stand so they can see you on the
Right.
camera. And just saying, I'm sorry, you're going to need to stand on the footprints because I can't see you. And that's a hard thing to say, but
We want to see their faces, we want to see their bodies as much as possible.
But you know what? Those little subtle hints like that, they go a long way.
Sure.
And I mean, point of example at Hibbard, several years ago when we were doing the demo there, they used to have like traffic lines around the perimeter upstairs. It was pretty cool because it was like dash lines in the straights, and then in the curves it was solid, just like a road. We're doing demo, and it was hilarious to watch the kids walk over to the right-hand lane that they're supposed to be in, and just, even then, just subconsciously they did it. All those little cues are, as quirky as they are, they have a place.
We ready to proceed to the next building?
that was one building.
1 of 7.
This is the one that doesn't require much work.
Ron?
Give you a little bit of perspective. I would this is conceptual design review at this point.
Yes.
And it's good to have this dialogue and all that. I would suggest that once you've had your input and everything, the next step would be for when the detailed design is presented and arguably bid documents prepared, you know, that would be an appropriate topic for an executive session because you're allowed to discuss security issues in executive session.
Oh, that's really good.
Concepts, I think nothing you've talked about has been terribly, you know, detrimental, but I think at that point, once you've given the direction and you get the product back, I think how each building is actually going to be constructed is something that, if you want to have input in, and I think you do, would be more
That is a
appropriate in
very
exec
good
session
point.
than in a public meeting.
Very
Thank
good
you.
point. Thank you for that.
But do we want to wait until, I mean, if we want to have input, we don't want to wait until final documents are done?
No,
because
that's what this is for.
Okay,
The
all right.
prices go up if you do that.
I was going to say.
They have to change the.
I was just trying to clarify that, you
No,
know,
he's just talking
Yeah, I
about
don't-
details.
the
Once
conversation needs to take place
conceptually
before
talked
final
about.
documents.
We just received very detailed instructions on the protocol for what you want to address. Now, again, every building's different. There's gonna be subtle differences. There's nothing we can do about that. They just are. But I feel like we just got very detailed instructions on how to approach these different layers. So we'll come back to you and show you how we've done that.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it was easy. That was the easiest one.
Right.
Oh,
And that's
I'm
scary.
sorry.
Cal.
To a
Okay.
degree, you're probably right, because
Okay,
it's
so-
already sort of there.
So Baxter, you can see, I apologize, the writing's sort of small, you can see where the existing AI phone is. The interesting thing here is, and this is not unusual, we have buildings everywhere where we have traffic that cuts directly across where that security line needs to be, and so we have to have a way to address that. To the, pardon me, to the right, you can see there's a low counter. There's one individual, one administrative assistant, which is actually beyond that. I think in this case, there's gonna have to be an operational change. Either that person's gonna have to get up and move to a location, or that desk is gonna have to be moved. But again, you're gonna have to address that. And then the other interesting thing is that other pair of doors to the top and left goes into the gym, and those are not secured. And that's the primary way that students get into the gym. So here's our proposed solution, is to introduce that additional security line there. You can see that ultimately access would be provided via 4. We bring a new wall construction around and we tie it into that front counter. And at 3 and 2 is where that secondary vetting takes place. And again, just as we discussed, that would become glass now with that, transaction location. So actually, in a way, this is maybe even a little bit cleaner than the previous one, but it accomplishes the same thing.
Not to muddy the water, but I hate to think a counter is gonna dictate where we put our walls. I mean, that just is a lobby, I believe it's still just a lobby area.
It is.
Correct.
Yes.
There's chairs there. I mean, you know, if we could reconfigure that office space, I think that would be, I don't know what the staff thinks.
Yeah, the staff person is pretty well outfitted in this location here.
Yeah.
So you're right, we could move.
But I mean, if we don't need this lobby, if we put a counter here and give the office, I mean, I don't know, I would just.
That's smart.
I like to have a little more,
That way they can
I like
stay right
to
there.
have the space here on,
Okay. All right, I mean,
because you're gonna lose, yeah,
that we just talked about that counter being, you know, and
The
now we're
space
gonna.
4.
no, I
It's not
understand.
just the
I would-
counter,
I'd
though,
like to
it's the
move it forward.
workspace behind, too,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, that counter is now our pivot point for
right.
all our new walls.
I am not trying to step on toes here. You are a licensed architect. That is all you.
Oh,
I threw out some
Lord.
ideas just so when I'm
Kidding me?
throwing stuff out, I can give you guys an idea.
Sir.
And throw these away if you want or whatnot.
I know.
Just some, and because I don't have a pointer or slideshow to talk about.
Well, he didn't give me one either.
I didn't give you one? I thought I gave you one.
That's mine.
I'm sorry.
Does Laura have one?
You want me to make
Yeah.
copies?
Does Laura have one?
I only printed off like 10, so.
That's okay.
She's gonna print some more. Okay. So, anyways, what I just handed out to everybody was right here. can you go back to the previous slide? How you were talking about the reconfiguring the office. It's basically just moving this countertop over to here, putting a cut window in here, and then all of that is contained right here.
It wasn't moving the desk at all.
No, but that's what his idea is.
That's what mine.
Oh, okay.
On the, if you flip the page over, Ty, on this one, it was just moving this over.
So your
Creating
waiting
that.
area would be at the vestibule right now.
The
And
hall-
so
yeah.
it kills two, I mean, how much traffic do we have at Baxter? How many kids are there?
I've been there where you've had 10 people in that area
Okay.
waiting, because you have quite a few
I don't know.
outside.
So that's my question, is that too small of an area for it?
Yeah.
A lot of people waiting
Probably.
outside then, probably.
Well, you've
Whereas-
got your airphone outside to where they don't get in
Right.
until they've invested the first time. That's why I don't know, I'm asking.
Yeah, so that, again, this concept follows along the same pattern. So once you're
I think I
vetted
threw
through the AI
another
thing,
eye-
you let it into the secondary waiting area, which is essentially, obviously, we're leaving that corridor open, the secure corridor open to access the gymnasium there. And we're tying into the existing counter, and then we would make improvements to the counter.
And then, I actually got two drawings on there for Baxter. The second one, I didn't take into consideration the primary entrance for the gym. So that's a very valid point.
Well, we thought about buzzing and fobbing the gym doors, and then we thought that might just be, and there's several schools where that seemed to be a little bit of a problematic, and that's why we didn't go that
Yeah.
approach.
Right, that makes a lot of sense.
There's
So number
also a lot
four-
of work area behind that office, or behind that counter, and I haven't been there in a while, but I know that the clerical person supports the teachers in some of that workspace behind there, don't they?
Right, there's.
You guys have to remind me about that, because I haven't been there in a while.
Deep back in there.
It does
It
go
goes
deep.
back in there, and there's a bunch of workspace back
Yeah,
in there, I think.
the primary workspace of the administrative system is right here. This counter is not presently occupied. So that would become a transaction counter, and I think
Oh,
based
I
upon
see.
the number of visitors, you would ask that individual to move to that location in the vetting
So
process.
can I have a question? Is the four, is that gonna be a hallway?
Yes,
Okay, so that what I see around that's gonna be a wall?
yes.
Okay, I like that because that area is huge and the kids are right there. It needs to be cut off. That whole, because when you walk in that building, you just walk right into the whole, to
Yes, you
everything.
do.
And if there's, if there's just one person sitting there, you can just go, you have access to the whole building. So I like the fact that there's a wall there preventing that from them going any further. I think that's smart, especially at that school.
But personnel would be, this is a good example of personnel, because you don't have as many people.
Yes, you have one.
Yeah. So you limited personnel. Even if you take Brad's design where he puts the system in here, and puts that receptionist there, and this counter here is open, you could if you need to make that area bigger, you can move this wall that way and make it bigger, but by moving that person over there, if you had, just with a limited personnel, I mean, you're making it a lot easier.
The only problem with that is because she does work with the staff and the teachers, she's got all this stuff behind her. There's probably no way we can move all that stuff that she needs to have access to
Forward.
down with her.
Well, but this is just this counter is just 3
I know,
foot
but it's
tall
a-
anyway. She's back here. She's right here.
Yeah, that's where she
She is
sits
now.
right there.
She
where it
sits
says
right here.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry, you're
So
right.
She has to get up and come
And go
out
to the
here
counter.
anyway,
You're right, you're right.
right?
Right. Yep,
If we
you're
move her
absolutely right.
workstation over,
Yeah, I think she has to move.
So we move it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if this was moved over, she wouldn't no longer be here. Even in his design, I don't think she can stay here.
No,
Can't she?
and that's what we said.
Yeah, she would have to move to the counter.
She's gonna have to
Brett, what do
move.
we gain by this over what the architects are suggesting, recommending?
one, you've got one less door, cost savings, construction costs. I mean, you're cutting one hole in a wall and redoing, and just,
But we identified that that's not big enough on your first one there.
Yeah, we need a little more room on that one for sure.
That's why I said if you wanted to move this wall, you could expand it. You could actually expand this, make us.
If you expanded that out, then
That
you would
whole
gain
area
office
as big as you
space
want.
too.
So,
They don't need this, I don't
don't
think that
need
they
it.
need the extra office space. It's really a lot of
I'm
room.
not saying
here.
my designs are 100% right, guys. I'm just throwing those are
Another
my
idea.
ideas on these things.
Once again, we go with the glass.
I'm
Well,
a
here's-
visual person.
Okay, so
Most
This is a work
definitely.
session.
the brains of the
is.
operation just reminded me, sorry, Brad, where you're putting that window, there's a column right there. Sorry.
There's a column.
Window in the vestibule, there's a column right there.
Oh, there sure is. There sure is. There it is.
here?
Yeah.
Right in there.
The
There
other
sure
thing
is.
too to keep in mind is there's one administrative assistant that person also has responsibility for monitoring the clinic to the right. There's a lot going on there, and I don't think there's as many visitors as we're talking about here that they can't get up and move to that counter for a transaction.
She does it all the time. She does it now.
The unfortunate thing is, even right now, where that one employee sits, she also at times gets called on to assist
In the classroom.
in the classroom with disruptive students.
Mm-hmm.
If we move them 20, if we moved her 20 feet closer, so to speak, to that entrance, that 20 feet response time for that individual to get around that corner, go down a hallway, makes a difference between somebody getting hurt.
Plus where she is, she still has the whole.
There's a
vision
column in the
of that hallway.
vestibule, hidden inside the wall. Is it hidden inside the wall?
It is inside the wall.
Okay.
But with that counter being where it is, right now, she can see all the way down to the cafeteria. If we move it up, you take, I don't know.
Oh, I didn't think
Vision.
about that. The
Yeah.
line of sight to the
line of
rest of the
sight.
building too is an issue.
They've got access to the south. She
Yeah, I
has
didn't think
access to
about
the
that.
south and to the east directly. And as many times as I go in there with incidents, it's that corridor right there that they need to really be.
Yeah, I didn't think about that line of sight could be helpful.
So,
Sure.
Which corridor are you talking about?
That one that goes to the east.
So you're talking about this corridor here?
No,
No,
the one that goes
straight
to the
ahead.
east,
Straight
right?
up.
Yeah, That's where a lot of the incidents of the kids that have to be controlled,
Yeah,
the older ones, they're down at the end of that hallway.
I didn't think
isn't
about
that wall behind the U-shaped desk full height though?
It is. It is.
And she's sitting behind that most of the time?
Yes.
Yep.
So how's that line of sight open?
She doesn't.
Well, we just said we're gonna have to
Full
change
height.
her location.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll have to put her behind the.
This one is,
By the J desk right there.
What's going on here?
I was talking about.
There's a fireplace there currently,
Yep.
and they're
It's a
proposing to
fireplace.
remove it, I suppose.
Do you need this middle set of doors?
Once again, for not letting the cold in and the heat out, or
The vestibule.
cold out. and
Glass
vision.
here. I mean, I guess if these could be
Yes.
eliminated, and you could just kind of run your hallway here, because this is a pretty big traffic loop into and out of the gym, then you wouldn't have to get into this mess, and just bring the wall, you know.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much feet, what
Well,
your
I think,
measurements are.
I think we want to retain the vestibule, that's a real energy
Right.
saving. And again, if we go
Right.
back to our previous concept, we have two lines of control. The exterior and then the interior.
Still gonna
But
have
but I hear what you,
vestibule,
John, I hear what you're
Those doors
saying.
are never locked,
You're
right?
right, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, those are not.
There's
lockable.
certainly a benefit from an energy standpoint to
You'd have to
keeping
change them
those.
out.
And I worry in all these about, egress, if we do have a fire and there's any
Oh,
kind of
we're,
chaos.
this meets all egress
Well,
requirements.
I know they all meet them, but in the real world, I mean, if you're in the gym, that's 4 doors you gotta go out to get out of the building. It's a lot of doors.
Is there a door on the east side of the gym?
Or is it in the backside that goes into the
Yeah, there's one.
corridor?
There's one on the east side of the gym that goes out to the lot.
Exterior.
All right, so if you're on the
I
east
thought
side,
it
you
went
go
out
out
to the
that door.
playground.
And then there's one on the,
Yeah, I
Is
thought
this
so.
a
The other one
framed
is
wall
on the
or is this
There's
glass?
not one near the playground?
Framed.
Framed wall?
Isn't there one near the playground going out?
Oh,
That
that-
exit from the gym goes out to the playground,
On the
doesn't
north
it?
Yeah,
side
off
and the east
on the
side.
other
Yeah.
side, I believe
Mhm.
so, yeah.
yeah, you need 2 ways to get out, and probably 3 ways in the gym, the gym, because it can probably hold a lot.
To what John was saying though, if the wall that has 4 on it is brought on this drawing down, 2.5, 3 feet,
Down to
and
here.
the doors in the middle, in between 1 and 4, were removed.
No, you
And-
need that door.
So
Well,
you're
hold on,
looking
let me
like
finish. And, yeah, and then the glass is installed on 3 and 2, wouldn't that become the vestibule?
We had a
Yeah,
vestibule,
it would.
then a waiting area. You
And
know.
actually, the funny thing about it is, when you talked about moving this over here and making this the vestibule, you're actually creating enough space. You could actually put an office there.
We don't need to.
Well, but I mean, we're always looking for space. I mean, there is a tremendous amount of space from here to here.
I would say
great
keep it vestibule right now. I mean, I don't know that we give that up for an office space that we don't need.
I'm not suggesting we do that. I'm just saying there's.
I mean, I don't.
It'd give you
so
options in the future if it's ever
It's a
repurposed.
fireplace, you're just blocking it in?
It's not being used
It's
now,
not being
yes.
Like, I assumed it wasn't being used.
Right, so.
But I mean, obviously, it's a feature of the building.
it's definitely not right, so.
I mean, yeah.
We don't need the doors, I don't know why we have them. I think it's a.
Well, but in the Crustdale example, there was a vestibule and then a waiting area and then the door into the building. Isn't that the same thing?
So we're just trying to
Yes.
do a similar
I don't pay attention.
in all of them, so.
Yeah, I'm less concerned with similar than I am making them the best they can be.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. If you're going for a, consistent level of security and you're wanting to retain the benefits of energy savings,
You need that door.
that would keep that consistent, right?
Well, you could still, if you took this
Do
wall
need it, just for the
and
energy.
went back, it still could be considered a vestibule. It would just be a little bit
Street
bigger.
dirt.
That's what you have right now.
Because you're only talking, if you went here,
If you
you're
move
only,
this wall
you're
to
talking,
here and put the doors
what,
right
10
here,
feet?
this is solid glass.
Mhm.
But
And
you're
this-
wanting to eliminate the
that
middle
area-
set of
and
doors,
that
is what
would
you
be-
said.
And that
All
would
you're
be a
doing is
big enough
expanding
area
this
to
area
hold
slightly.
people.
But you're wanting to eliminate the
Sure.
second set of
Okay,
doors,
you
that middle set
understand
of
that,
doors?
Yeah.
But that's what I'm trying to understand is that before, what we
Energy
said was we want them to
purposes.
stand outside, and we want them to be in a secured area,
That's not secure.
or not secure,
It's a
but the,
secure building.
we want to retain
The,
the
It needs
heating and
no-
air.
Right.
That
Then
place
barrier.
is
they go
for the
in
purpose of
here
security 'cause
before
kids
they're
are
allowed
back.
to go through the security doors into the rest of the building.
Well, that's what I'm saying, the heating
I
and
think
air.
this one's looking like we have too many doors because the gym happens to be right there, but we probably wouldn't be even talking about that.
We have the same thing at Crestdale, because the gymnasium is
Right there.
right
But
south
we
of the
didn't notice those
yeah,
doors for
'cause
some reason, I don't.
There's actually
I
two.
mean, from a design aspect, I would bring it straight and not fool with the fireplace and make it happen, because I don't think we need those doors, but that's just my personal opinion.
See, this is, of all the buildings, this one should be the most secure because of the type of students that are there. They're there for a reason. And
There's a lot of volatile things going on with their families and everything.
and there's a lot, parents, when they come in there, sometimes there's a lot of hostile feelings about what's going on with their kid and things are going on. So you're worrying about a few doors, and really we need to make this one as secure as possible.
Well, plus, I mean, I understand, but plus there's no line of sight, so you basically have a wall here. I mean, I don't wanna spend all day talking about that, but if I'm working here, who knows what's going on in this area?
But you can't move that wall anyway.
We can take most of it down but the column.
Well, why do that?
I think from a design element, I would take it out. It provides all it provides is some additional HVAC buffering. And gives you a place to hide
And
your
the
column.
fireplace, honestly, I've been in that building so much lately, I didn't even know there was a fireplace there. And so, when they said the fireplace, I was like, who cares? Who cares? I walked in the building several times, and I've never noticed it.
Nobody saw these before.
Well, if it makes sense to, I think the vestibule needs to stay personally, but if it makes sense to make the wall closer to the door, I just don't know if that's a good.
Were we under budget
Yes.
on all yours?
Well, we're moving in the other direction now.
Not anymore with the glass, I'm
After
sure.
the first discussion, yeah, we're moving in a different direction.
Well, that's what I'm saying, you know,
if we're creating too much cost, then making this smaller might be a way to reduce some of the budget expenses.
Well, no, actually, if we're eliminating the vestibule, we're gonna have to restore all those surfaces, and we're gonna have to
Right.
change the HVAC
Right.
to create a larger vestibule and control the air. So no, this is,
Cha-ching, cha-ching.
this is probably the easiest way to modify this, this plan.
Considering all the mechanical benefits.
Yeah.
Undermine what they're doing without
Um,
breaking them in.
Undermine it, that's not my.
My thing is, I thought we were supposed to be talking about, you know, like the glass part,
Yeah.
I get, we felt it would make the buildings more secure. So throwing out our ideas on how we think the buildings will be more secure, moving doors and desks and windows and this and that.
Has nothing
That's
to
why
do-
we hire architects. So, I don't know, that's where I'm at on it. I think we need to give ideas on how we want to keep our kids safe.
Yep. And I think the glass going all the way up around her desk is, yes, we gotta have it. That hallway, gotta have it. That second door coming in, I mean, you wanna tear down a wall just because it's a second door? The parents that go there know that this has to be a secure environment. They know it.
That is the one building.
That is one building
door
that
provides
has
no
to be
security
secure.
there.
That is the
I'm
one
just, I'm
building.
just saying. So
And
when
if
I walk
anything,
in that
gives you-
building, I'm like, wow, I can walk down the
Unless we're gonna have a
hallway.
camera,
I can walk anywhere I wanna walk in that building.
I guess you need another camera here to look in this area, because that's the only way you'll be able to see.
But we don't do that at any other building.
There may or may not be a
What?
camera in that area.
At the-
I really
at the-
don't like to announce where we
Yeah,
have our security
exactly.
features.
Not in that building.
Not in any building.
That's really not our,
Right.
But at Charles, you can see into the vestibule. Okay, I mean, I'm
right.
Your design is great.
But we definitely want one on the outside here as you approach the, payphone.
And plus, you'd save money by not fooling with all this fireplace stuff. Now, you got another false wall. I mean, but we can move on.
We'll adjust, we'll keep the fireplace, I promise you.
Who cares?
Okay, this is a challenge, okay?
Yeah,
And
Charles is
again,
challenging.
well, here's the challenge, it's because of the deep nature at which the relationship of the reception desk is to the main vestibule. It's a great-looking building, don't get me wrong, this is wonderful. Unfortunately, it creates a different challenge, and we looked at this a number of different ways. We even talked about moving the office. Again, think about the office staff and how they work together and work in relationship with the clinic. You know, there's a lot of relationships there, and I'm not suggesting we reduce our response to security. I'm just saying
I didn't draw it
that you
up
have to
'cause
maintain all those
it'd be too much to
relationships.
talk about on this one.
And earlier, I think we discussed this idea of, you know, taking one of office staff, putting them on an island. That doesn't work. I don't think they can function that way. They certainly can be the initial vetter going through the vestibule, but to actually expect them to work throughout the day with office staff doesn't make sense. And we're running into this in a number of buildings, so we think we've come up with a relatively unique solution. And essentially what that is we're employing technology as well as the security doors. So again, we have the airphone outside, as you see, a proposed secondary camera. Our outdoor doors are locked. Actually, there's great visibility from office staff to that vestibule. It's somewhat removed, but they have great visibility. So once they're allowed in there, they come into this generous lobby, and here's our proposed solution. And that is that we introduce doors and walls at 4 and 4. These doors are interlocked with the exterior doors. Now again, we have an operational issue here that we'll have to address, but we've already vetted this through our hardware suppliers. So essentially what happens is that if the doors in the corridors at 4 and 4 are in operation, the exterior doors are locked. They can't, they're defeated, and a visitor cannot come in. So what this does is this enables us to not destroy the quality of the vestibule, the relationship of the reception counter to the vestibule. Again, as we just discussed, we would introduce the full height glass at the reception counter like we're doing elsewhere. But yeah, there's an operational side to this. Obviously, if a student is walking through that area, the receptionist is not gonna buzz anybody in. And likewise, teachers are coming from the hallway and they see visitors out there, they're going to stop. They're not going to go into that area. So there is an operational side there, but I think this works relatively well, and we found this again at multiple buildings. The only difference is, in some buildings, sometimes there is a secondary corridor system behind that can be used. In this case, there is not. And so that is a little bit of a challenge.
Actually, this case it is. Charles, it is.
Oh, okay.
We have that back.
Okay, good. So, again, just change your procedures and use that secondary corridor.
Now, I'm sorry, I had to step out, so.
So,
Did you address the preschool entrance there?
it's locked.
It's not preschool
That's not
anymore.
preschool.
It's locked, and it's not
That's
preschool.
the community room now?
It's a community room,
Right,
okay.
so it'd remain locked.
Yes, it would remain locked. So, the doors and the walls that we're introducing at 4 would be interlocked with the exterior doors and your software system.
Put preschool on the side there.
So if those doors are operational at 4, the exterior doors cannot be opened, they're locked, except emergency egress out. So obviously you had a fire, all these doors are gonna be operational, everybody's gonna exit out. That's the way a building's supposed to work. But otherwise, for the visitor and the student that might walk through 4, then those exterior doors would not open up, they would be interlocked with 4. And likewise, if you had visitors in the lobby at the reception desk, you would not go into the lobby. We would see those same decals at 4 and 4 so that they would not be unattractive, but you would not be able to see into the corridors where the students are.
Yeah.
How big is the back hall? I mean, they can't take class lines through, can they?
It's not as wide as the main corridor. So we would encourage them to use this approach most times, so.
Because there is traffic in that lobby. I mean, this probably has as much parent traffic as any elementary. And I mean, I've been standing at that desk. I can't think of a time that class hasn't passed by. I mean, I'm not saying it's not doable, but it seems pretty, that's gonna have your classes backing up in the hallways, I'm guessing. If the rule is.
Yeah,
that's
once
just
people
another-
are vested though, I mean, we're not saying that nobody can be in that lobby if a classroom's going through. What we're
There's
saying
signals
is,
that somebody's in there not to go through. That's what you guys just said.
no, what we said was that nobody could come in the door 1 if they're there. If there are people who are regulars that we know are coming in there, for instance, practicum students from IU East, if there are parent volunteers, again, we get into that knowing who our people are that are supposed to be there. If there's a reason why there's somebody in there that we still have concerns with, then that's again, we're going to practices that we're gonna have to adjust protocols and expectations of people as well.
Who controls the doors then?
The office staff.
If I'm a teacher,
Oh,
You'll
for
have a fob,
4,
your card.
your fob,
so
your fob going out of the lobby into the corridors,
I have my class coming down the hallway and there's adults here,
you stop.
I stop.
Yes.
So when do I know I can go on?
When the front office staff lets you know, because they're positioned, you know, where like.
So how do they let me know?
They're right here, they'll us tell you,
Well,
that it's clear, so.
Again, I think that those are the protocols that
If
have to be
Cindy's sitting there, she
established
can say,
once we
okay,
get to this point.
Yeah, it's just a different procedure,
yeah,
so.
Actually, when,
I'm not saying it's the wrong one.
Right.
I just don't know if that's a very good one. I mean, structurally, I think you're right, it's a very difficult building.
well, when I was there the other night, this is a huge area,
Yes.
a huge area.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sitting there, the first thing that I'm thinking of is this whole area to me seems like it needs to move. You
Yeah,
know,
but that's a huge.
Well, it's not,
thing.
but it's not just that. It's the clinic behind it and
Well,
the principal's office and everything else.
well, you got the clinic right here, but everything else that's back here is like a supply closet and a bathroom and that kind of stuff.
Right.
Yeah,
The
principal's
only
office.
building back, because there's a hall that comes back,
Sorry about that, Jim. Hang on.
playing tricks with me, aren't you?
No, I just hit the button, or hit the
But
screen.
If you look at, and now, I didn't walk around this side, but I think you've got the clinic that's in here, you got a men and women's bathroom back here, and you got like a supply closet and a clothes closet or
Closed
something?
closet, yeah.
And principal's office.
Yeah.
Principal's
so
office is on the right.
principal office and
That-
conference
that's
room and
part
all
of
that
it.
stuff is
has
over
to-
here.
That has to be with it.
So, and I first thought, man, that's a tremendous amount of space, especially in the past, I know we relieved some pressure, but I'm thinking, you could actually pick up preschool rooms. You know, so I was just like, man, is there any way that we could move this over here and lower this, what I call containment area?
So then where's the hallway then, for the moving of the kids?
Well, this then becomes behind the
Office.
yeah, behind the, well, either behind the Holman area, however. I didn't spend a whole lot of time thinking about it, I was just thinking,
I think when we
you got a tremendous amount of area there. though.
we spoke with the principal, I mean, one thing we hate to do is disconnect your support staff from your principal and your other support areas, so, because we even looked at moving that whole environment up, and it would disconnect your secretary clerical from your principal, nurses station and so forth, so it was not designed for this type of, secure entrance, if you will, but I think this achieves a lot of what we need.
Well, what I was wondering is if there was some way that we could relocate all of that stuff here and encompass it in here.
Enough square footage is there?
And
There's not
then
enough
we-
square footage.
There's not enough square footage for
But-
the office to be there.
Well, but we could come out as far as we needed to. Like I said, I was just.
This was
It
this
does
was a
seem like
crazy animal, this one. And that's why I don't have any drawings up for it. I have way too many thoughts on it, and there's a number of different ways you can go. I think what you've got works, as long as the secure mechanisms work, as far as if doors 4 are open, 1 cannot be opened. But I just, it's a different animal, this one.
Anyway, that was the only thing I had about it, is because that area was so huge, so. Because this room here always, I mean, it's been a paint room, it's been a preschool room, it's been a.
Right.
You
It's
said
a
CIS room now?
Community room, yeah.
Community room
Yeah.
now. I mean, this room here, of course, with bathrooms here, would make it convenient for the office. I mean, I just don't like that whole design, so.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. We could spend a 30-year budget on this one building to attempt to do that. And so we're trying to provide an equivalent solution to each one.
If you take out this triangle, can't you save a fair bit, you bring your glass, just like that. I mean, I forget exactly what it looks like. It seems like you're cut off several feet of wall and.
Yeah, you're
an
right.
empty
That
space.
that could be done, sure.
Squared off.
Yeah, absolutely.
That would probably make more sense.
Would
What
the
else?
cost of the counter reconstruction outweigh the cost of the glass?
Move,
I
to
would
move
guess.
the counter as well.
Well, to square it off.
Square that
Square it
off like
off.
that.
I wouldn't square the counter, I just.
Oh, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you were just suggesting squaring off that new wall. right?
Oh,
Yes.
gotcha.
Yeah, we could do that.
That would be different.
Make another little closet in that V.
Put the V on the school side rather than the visitor side.
Sure.
See, that's, you have a little bit of money to spend on enhancements, and you sit there and you're looking at.
But isn't that desk aligned with the wall?
Yeah, but if we did that, then we throw off the whole wall
Yeah, you throw
running
off the
straight
wall.
down with the other wall
Right.
to the bathroom wall.
Oh, yeah, that's true too.
See that? That's what I was thinking too.
The bathroom wall.
Cause it had a lower counter at one time.
You need a little red pointer, don't you?
I like it the way it is.
Well, let us
I'd
explore
look
that
at it
and
both
see if there's,
ways.
well, let us explore that and see if there's a more
Save a lot of
economical
glass
way
by
to do
doing
that.
it the other way.
Oh, I see. On the counter's hot glass.
Would there be any other options, that second set of doors that you come in through in the current vestibule, if to reuse those and move them to the upper right a little bit to the, I don't know, if we repurpose these and move them to here, creating a larger vestibule could we encompass that somehow instead of having to do these? I don't know. I'm just throwing out thoughts.
You could do that, but then you would take one of your office staff and move them remotely down to another location. And again, we're trying to avoid that.
What's next?
Okay, another challenging one.
Another point, huh?
Fairview.
Fairview, of course. Yeah.
Okay, so again, and this one does, correct me if I'm wrong, this one only has one
Correct.
connection through.
There's
So again, doors 4 and 4 are similar. As we discussed, we would obviously introduce glass. We have to look at this very carefully. We're not gonna do curved glass. Maybe it's faceted, flat faceted on the reception counter.
I don't think anyone wants curved glass.
It's also interesting in that there are slots on either side of that reception counter which we will fill in so that you can't literally walk right into the office. But again, this is one where we looked at the spaces on either side of the existing vestibule, and again, we would be isolating an individual from the office staff. So this seemed to make a lot of sense. And really conceptually, this is very, very similar to the previous one.
Bill, the door 4 setup still the same as that if door 1 is open, the door 4 is?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And explain again the free flow, or how you would eliminate the free flow on either side of the front desk counter, because I know the nurse's station is to the left. You walk on back and it gets you into the back hallway area of the teacher's lounge. To the right is the principal's office.
Okay, so we have rear access into the office, so there's a, what were you gonna say, Rob?
No,
Sorry. So there's rear access into the office, so that's how we would access that.
The reasons I questioned this one was on the original drawing you sent out in the first PowerPoint presentation that was given to the board, doors 4 were not on there.
That was a mistake, yeah, sorry.
Right, so we didn't know when we were doing our walkthrough, and
Yeah,
that's why I
sorry.
requested what the notes were. Are they just adding additional cameras or what? So that helped a lot with the clarification there.
Yeah, through the magic of CAD, those mysteriously disappeared.
And it happens.
Yeah.
Now, just for, what, are you saying these walls are going all the way up? Is that what you're doing there?
So flanking the semicircular reception desk is an opening that goes directly into the office.
Right.
So we would infill those, and then we would introduce the glass on top and
This is
close it off.
This is just, these are private offices.
oh, okay.
So there would be no doors now from the counter going into the office?
That's right. Which would be similar to Crestdale and the other one, yeah.
Right. I think it's a pretty good fix to what I wondered how we were going to address it, because
So the curved glass may be cheaper for us to do a square counter?
Yeah, we'll do a faceted glass, absolutely. Yes.
Watch the aquarium shows, they can curve that stuff.
aquarium shows, that's right.
And they can introduce this concept of, a lot of times a class will park there, if you will, during transition times. Maybe they shouldn't park right there in that main
Right.
lobby. Effective now. Maybe they can park up someplace else, if you will, so they get out of that habit of landing where 2 and 3 is right now, so,
Absolutely.
you know.
Yes.
Again, that's just process changes,
Yes.
new normals, like you said.
Is there enough square footage on the 3 rooms to the bottom right to combine the 2 right next to the vestibule into the office area?
No, the unfortunate thing is that this one right here,
We checked.
the original stair actually is like no more than like about 6 feet high, the bottom of the right, or the bottom of the landing, so this is unusable.
Right.
There
We
was a
checked that out.
stair over there like on the opposite side.
Right. It's not showing here, but there is a stair here, for the original.
Well, they got
Yeah.
a nice yellow bumper pad on it.
It's also one of
It's
the
very
historical
narrow there.
schools,
Yes.
You know what I'm talking
that
about.
area right in there.
Yeah.
Even if that wall was removed in there, it would not have enough square footage?
It'd be really
So
small.
the stairs there.
It's really small now.
It's huge in 6th grade.
It felt like it, didn't it?
Yeah, good point. I don't think this solution will detract from any of the historical fabric, so.
So
Oops,
you
sorry.
said they're so there's class transitions in the 2 and 3 area?
Sometimes.
It'd be nice to kind of see that, have some practice run-throughs before we, have a class. I mean, where are they gonna go? I mean,
Yeah, they're hallways.
Yeah, you've got a hallway here that's.
Huge hallways
And you've
behind
got a
them.
hallway here in front of the library,
yeah.
so,
They could just hold there.
it's just, you've got a hallway here,
They're doing it now because they
Here.
can, basically.
Here.
Right. It's not a big deal.
over here.
Right, right.
Your library is right, this is your computer lab, and your library's here, so.
They do stage in the other hallways too.
They do.
I've
There
been
again,
there
it
when
could be
they're
just a
doing it.
change in practice,
Right.
because as often as I'm there, I see some teachers that will stop right there where 4 is, on
Yeah.
on 4, and they will stage right there, and then they'll walk through. And it's a smart thing, because a lot of times it's when there are people who are standing at the counter, and they do that. So maybe that just should be the standard norm there, or move them on through and move them to that south hallway.
Yeah.
I think there'll be as many instances where visitors will be delayed outside,
Yes.
Right.
honestly. I think that will happen.
And that's another one that gets a lot of visitors.
Well, it has a nice canopy outside.
has
It's not,
really
not,
nice canopy.
it's, yeah,
Right.
so, yeah. You may just be outside until the students clear.
Do you move your
Make them
AI
move
to
faster.
the middle set of doors?
Yep.
I mean, like, with the canopy,
Oh.
but.
Right here,
I know,
middle
but,
door.
I mean, if we're gonna be holding people outside,
Yeah, I suppose that could happen at any one of the buildings, so.
I mean, I just,
Yeah, and if so, then we have to retrofit the interior set of doors, which may not be retrofitted for the hardware and for the
Okay.
magnetic locks and stuff, yeah.
And then lastly, I'll just ask, I'm guessing that the 2 double doors is enough egress,
Yes.
since we're just funneling the 3.
All right. Again, everyone's a little bit different, so Star. Okay, so in this case, that column is not a real column. It's just a decorative column. So once you come into 2, you'll see that we've created that secondary holding area. 3 would be the glass and transaction counter directly into the office. 4, we've carried that new wall construction all the way over to the counter, and we'll tie that into the glass wall, and that's where that column is. It's just a decorative column. There's not actually a structural column in there.
Is that true for the middle column there? That it's,
There is one column in that lobby that has structure in it, and you'll see the ones that are dashed off to the right,
Right.
the one with the new wall. That one right in the middle is your actual column, so,
the one in the middle is?
yeah, so it's the one that has to stay. I know she requested removal of as many of them as we could.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay, good, thank you.
So this one here is what you're referring to?
yes.
But
Sorry,
the other one
dash
could
doesn't
go.
show.
So that one's gonna go, yeah, be nice. Makes sense.
Yeah, but then we'd have to fix the floor and.
Yep, that's true.
You're not
I
wrong.
just see, you wanna run us over budget, don't you?
I believe the principal's the one that requested that, so.
Because is that line of sight issues with her? for her?
Believe it or not, little kids hide behind there and
Oh,
try to play
surprise,
people away from
surprise.
adults.
Surprise, surprise. Can't imagine.
In the morning and at lunchtime.
Yep.
So we would essentially remove that, because they have like a screen pocket door there as well, right?
Right, well, or just
The
leave it in place,
accordion
abandon it in
enclosure.
place. I think we asked that question, and I'm not sure anybody had a memory of when, in fact, that it had ever been used.
Well, we asked the environmental service person as well, who's been there for some time. He said he's never closed it, so.
Which
on
door?
that one,
Which one?
At Star.
Just
Around
right.
the,
It comes right here.
It tucks back
This,
in here.
right here, it tucks back, it's like an accordion that comes all the
Oh,
way
yeah.
around here,
Mhm.
and they've never used it.
They have used the one at Fairview, though. You know, they use that.
Of course, with the treatment at Fairview, they won't have to use it.
They won't use it now,
That's
so,
right.
because they'll
We'll have closed
lock
that
it
off.
up. Yeah, because it is used for other purposes in the evening, so.
And just for the Boys and Girls Club, is that why they use it?
Right, yeah, we have a lot of, yeah, it's used to reduce the number of, students that go in there after hours, so.
That's not a fire code thing?
I kinda like
The-
that,
No, not an emergency exit in
No
that
emergency.
case.
Okay,
because they're not in there.
okay.
No. I kinda like the Brad design on, just not a big enough area. I mean, either one is. Oh, having this check-in system in the, alcove. Which means that those set of doors would probably have to be redone.
I think that works well too. I was just there the other day, so it retains the security and. Now, will the cafeteria, 'cause isn't it right off the?
Yeah, it's not impacted.
Don't you have to go through that new set of glass? Why did we put the other set of glass doors?
For security.
Yeah, just in the wrong place.
I know, it
Well, I
keeps
think it's
people
in the
from
right
going to the
place.
rest of
It's-
the building.
It's for the rest of the building,
Okay.
so we're enhancing security now.
Okay. Oh, okay, yes. The title.
You talk about the ones that are not marked right there.
Right, these down here, and then we could have those, Bill explained we could keep these open during the
Yes.
school hours,
Mhm.
close them off if we need
Yes.
to, so. But right now, they're closed full-time, and they buzz people through here. Your cafeteria's right here, so it's open in the morning and so forth. It does that traffic through there. The problem was, you have two classrooms up here that were in the lobby, so.
Right.
Well, we added those up just 2 years ago, didn't we?
It was during the renovation with the other, like with Crestdale and so forth,
So if this was moved to
7,
here,
6.
this area wouldn't be enough? That wouldn't be enough area?
Your call.
Between
It wouldn't be
the two
consistent
doors,
with the
so
treatment of the other buildings.
It'd be pretty tight, I think, so.
I don't think it'd be enough room at all.
Existing, it does seem like it's tight, though. I mean, they'd have to move it.
All right.
Okay. That seems like that entrance, I mean, it's Star, I guess I've not been, but that is packed at dismissal.
Well, that's another way that the administration has really supported us and the secretarial staff, because it used to be that lobby was full of people waiting for their kids and so forth. They now wait on the outside. There's a protocol. There's a procedure to get the kids into the vehicles, into the hands of the people that are waiting there and so forth, and parent. And again, you've got a good canopy there so that people can wait there for them, so.
In this particular location, doors 4, the thing that you don't see is up at the ceiling line. Those have minimal impact on the ceiling. Not a lot of cost in the way in which we're gonna connect that, so.
And your clerical sitting there at 3 anyway right now, so.
Is that second, or the holding area, for lack of better terminology, is that large enough? Right here. I mean,
Especially if you're not.
I mean, I guess it's after the last two buildings we looked at, they're huge. But,
Yeah, it's just sort of making the most of the design that's
even,
there.
yeah, even Crestdale was,
I don't think they have any choice
Fairly
because
large.
of the classroom door.
Exactly, the
Right.
classroom doors is the issue. Agree.
It'd be nice if we could. Okay.
Fail.
It's another challenge. They are all challenging in their own way, aren't they?
Okay, so this may look challenging. Actually, it turned out, I don't think this is too bad. So Again, we introduce 4s, and we move it beyond, we capture an area that's at the reception counter, we put glass in. Actually, this one worked out pretty well. Initially, it looked like a problem.
It did, I would have thought that too.
And the nice thing is, we put the decals on 4, students, staff can be going through the corridor unimpeded. You can't see in at that location. So I think this works pretty well.
Really does correct the issues there, for sure.
Again, another place where the administration has helped us out, keeping the
Absolutely.
patrons on the outside. You've seen that.
Oh, yeah.
They do a good job of that, so. And your parents are for it, so.
I haven't heard any complaints of any parents who, you know, just having to do that. And I don't care if it's at the beginning of the school year when it's hot or, you know, just even yesterday, you know, during cold weather. It's the parents who were waiting, so.
Yeah, it accomplishes what we set out to do, so.
Yeah. This one makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, 'cause the only glass area will be just that little section.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah,
Where the 3 is.
clerical sits anyway. right
And,
now, so.
well, the one I drew up was more of a question than anything, and it's already been addressed about isolating, individual staff members. I like those.
Westview. Again, similar type of situation, capture just what we need to, keep flow in the corridors unimpeded,
Very smart.
put glass across the reception counter there. I think we're in great shape.
To get too small,
Similarly.
you just could run it straight across one. Yeah, I got pretty tight. We looked at that. And that room off to our top left, that's not a classroom, but it is a support room.
I think that's great. Yep. That's a
Okay,
good idea.
so just to give you, and these are ranges, because we haven't done any detailed estimates at this point, but we feel pretty confident about this. And I want to discern, we are respectful of your budget that you gave us. What I'm interested in showing you at this point is construction cost. So construction cost is what we would expect to see on bid day, which does not include our fees, does not include a contingency for the project. So this is where we would estimate we're currently at, and the budget allows, in our opinion, $648,000. So we're within that. Now, obviously, we're increasing that with some of the glass, not dramatically so, but we are increasing it with some of the changes we made. We should still be well within budget at this point. And again, I think we have a strategy for getting very competitive bids very quickly through the quoting process, because I'm confident none of these school locations would even come close to $150,000. So I think we're in good shape there.
Before you go forward, Bill,
Yes.
so with the discussion we've had with adding the glass to it, then is the board comfortable with them proceeding forward with getting those final plans together to bring back to executive session as Ron Cross suggested?
I would say yes.
I'm good with it.
I am too.
Or
I mean,
four, yes?
Yeah.
think-
Yes, yes.
I think the important piece of it was the theory of what we wanted to do.
What level of security are we
Right.
talking about, which I think
Right.
we answered that question.
John?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would just try to, keep the pencil sharp, and if you can use, if we're putting glass in, if we can use glass for another 2 feet of wall, rather than build a wall, that kind of stuff.
Gotcha.
And then we can film it.
Right.
I mean, just whatever makes sense.
Yeah,
Just-
honestly, we approach this as, you can't put a price on safety and security. We understand that. However, we want to do this in an efficient way that's very effective. And so whether we were aligning walls with ceiling lines or whatever, we were taking that into account, yes.
Brad?
Yeah, I echo John's statement to, keep the pencil sharp, but I do like, the basis of the designs, and if we can use cost-saving techniques to pick up any dollars we can or not, then this,
Now, should we have accompanied with this a parallel process as far as
the protocols and the things that we need to change from the personnel point of view, and then look at, do we have the right staff to,
We'll review that. I mean, that'll be part of what we do, yeah.
And again, I think that's part of what Ron was talking about regarding, executive session,
Yeah.
so that you're not sharing in the public
that's what I'm saying,
eye
is
your
maybe if we
protocol.
had,
Yep,
maybe,
And we've got school safety specialists in every building.
everywhere, that's the
You
other
know,
thing.
and I think that's where they use their expertise to really, does the board sit down and develop that? I don't believe so.
I'm not asking for the board to
No,
develop it.
definitely.
I'm just offering that. I don't believe that that's, I think we let those people and.
But I don't think it would be a bad idea for the board to possibly review it.
Sort of understand it, that's the
Sure.
biggest thing.
The one thing I would say before we approve final plans, I would love to make sure every single staff member that's involved in the implementation of this, from the front office staff to clericals and principals and everything, to really go through the drawings and get their input and make sure per building, you know.
For every,
No, but the staff, the ones that are affected at STAR should look at STARs and make sure things flow and they don't see anything that we're not seeing because we're not there on a day-to-day basis.
But I thought that's what I heard you say, Rob, is that you've already done that.
We talk to them, yeah.
You've already talked to them about what their concerns are.
They haven't seen the drawing.
Okay,
You see what I'm saying?
yeah,
Because some stuff,
that's really important.
it is.
well, but hang on, so Brad is suggesting that. I need to know where the rest of the board is with that. I mean, we're talking, that could take some time and could
Yeah, in
impact the
general
whole
terms.
process we're doing here. Rob has met with them, with the secretarial staff. He's met with the administrators to get their input and their feedback. At this point in time, we've gathered that information from them. We need to know if that's what the board wants.
Yeah, in general terms, I think you're more talking at this point about, the training and the protocols. That's the most important thing, I think, at this point.
Well, I mean, I don't know that it has to be a formal process, but aren't you having meetings already set up in January to discuss the Raptor systems?
We are.
Yeah.
But they're hoping to begin to finalize plans, and
Right.
if we put them on hold to January, my thought was, as soon as we get back the first board meeting in January, we have the executive session to review the finals. Because as Bill mentioned before, if we don't get this out soon, then we're gonna miss that window of the summer to get that done.
What I was trying to make, Mr. Terrell, is that, again, that's a perfect opportunity with the meetings with the Raptors. I don't foresee the final drawings deviating drastically from these. Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. I
So,
agree.
could we share these drawings with the people that are being trained on Raptor and that are frontline affected by the changes that we made, and ask them, say, do you see anything wrong here? Do you see anything that we're not seeing as potential anything, line of sight or interaction with people on a daily basis? Do you see anything that we're missing?
And I think that's great, and I'm also very comfortable with Rob, has already talked to them and spoke with them, and he knows exactly what the comments that they've made. So seeing the plans and design, it's just gonna be like, yep, that looks good to me. I just don't think that's another step we need to delay the process.
And my thought is, if they say, yep, looks good to me, then that's fine, then they've,
But I don't wanna delay the security process, that's what it's all about.
I think it'd be nice to communicate the plans with them. I don't think we have to delay the process to do that.
I agree.
We can absolutely do that.
We don't have to delay the process to do
Yeah,
that.
I don't
Karen,
wanna
did
be
you
able to
have
accomplish
something?
I just have one comment, and that is that as we've made plans through the bonding process to handle all of this, we had to establish timelines for the bank that
Right.
we need to meet, at least relatively so.
Yeah.
So just as you plan, as you think through what this looks like, always keep in mind that we have stakeholders in this bond that we actually have to respond to on a quarterly basis and let them know we're on track with what we had planned.
Sharing with the administrators and the buildings or whatever, without delaying the process, is probably feasible.
Well, we're sharing it with
Right.
public. I mean, it'll be posted
Yep.
in board docs right now, so.
Right, so
Definitely.
it's just, as we continue on in this process, it'll just be important for us to remember, because things will start happening quickly, a lot at a time.
Yep.
And so we'll just have to always keep that calendar in mind, for those involved in that.
Right.
I think we probably need to take a short 5-minute break so that we can visit the facilities if necessary, because we haven't even begun to go to the media centers and the elevator, so.
I already took the break.
Yes, you did.
Dixie, you're coming out with a doozy.
They're good, I mean, I think.
We just don't wanna let you go.
A glass of champagne.
Getting our 2 December meetings in one.
You know,